What happens when the person you've built your life around shatters your trust on your wedding day, and instead of falling apart, you rise above the wreckage? On my wedding day, the unexpected happened. My fiancé's first love appeared at the ceremony, wearing the exact same haute couture gown as mine. There they were, standing together at the entrance, greeting the guests as if they were the bride and groom. I kept my composure, offering them a smile and a compliment, saying they looked like the perfect couple, beauty and brains, a match made in heaven. She burst into tears and ran off. But he didn't hesitate to humiliate me in front of everyone. He accused me of being petty and narrow-minded. After the wedding banquet ended, he left for what was supposed to be our honeymoon, with her by his side. I didn't argue. I didn't scream or cause a scene. Instead, I quietly booked an appointment for an abortion. By the time I returned home, it was already late. The moonlight streamed through the windows, casting a cold, desolate glow across the empty space. Exhausted, I dragged myself to the bedroom, only to be met with the sight of colorful wedding decorations still adorning the walls. How ironic, I thought. The ribbons on the bed hadn't even been cleared away, but I was too tired to care. I lazily swept them aside and collapsed onto the soft mattress, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on me. As I plugged my phone into charge, a notification caught my eye. It was from Candy McKinnon on her social feed. The caption read, "Grateful for your presence, not a moment wasted." The photo showed Brad holding her in his arms, their eyes locked, lips nearly touching. Matching rings glittered on their fingers. In the past, I would have stormed over, demanding an explanation. But now? I just turned off my phone, rolled over, and went to sleep. Days passed in silence. Not a single message from Brad. Instead, my feed was constantly flooded with Candy's updates, photos of them kissing, shopping, laughing together, flaunting their happiness for everyone to see. I didn't react. I didn't feel anger or sadness. Instead, I contacted a lawyer and began preparing for a divorce. Brad Dawson and I had been together for 8 years, since our university days. Although we had only just had a wedding ceremony, we had legally sealed our marriage shortly after graduation in a quiet, impulsive moment. No ceremony, no gifts, no jewelry, just the reckless passion of youth. But now, that passion was long gone, and all that was left was a mess to clean up. Nearly 2 weeks later, I sat at home, reviewing the divorce draft prepared by my lawyer. The house was quiet, but the sound of a key turning in the lock broke the silence. I looked up, and there they were, Brad, walking in hand with Candy. Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of awkwardness cross his face. He quickly let go of her hand, his voice strained as he tried to explain. "Candy's never been to the beach before, so I took her. Besides, you're pregnant. Didn't the doctor say you should be careful?" Before he could say more, I looked away, my eyes returning to the legal documents in front of me. I nodded, uninterested. "Okay," I said, dismissive. "Go ahead, whatever." Whatever else he was about to say caught in his throat. Seeing me sit there calmly, focused on the computer screen, completely unbothered, seemed to anger him even more. His voice grew cold, and he lashed out. "Do you have to be like this? I already told you, Candy's never been to the beach. That's why I took her. It's not a big deal. And why are you making a scene? It's not like we can't go on the honeymoon anytime. What's your problem?" He kept rambling, the frustration clear in his voice. "And how many times do I have to tell you, there is nothing between me and Candy?" I cut him off mid-sentence, tired of the same old lie. "You and her are just like brother and sister." "Yes, I know." I looked at him, my expression calm and indifferent. There wasn't any trace of anger. Brad's face, however, grew colder, his brows furrowed in frustration. His voice, laced with helplessness, cut through the room. "Then what are you upset about this time?" "I am busy," I replied, my attention already back on the draft in front of me, completely uninterested in meeting his gaze. Seeing the tension, Candy quickly stepped forward, gripping Brad's wrist with a performative air of concern. She added fuel to the fire with her sweet, saccharine tone. Please, Rossi, don't be mad. You mustn't argue with Brad because of me. Brad may not have taken you with him this time, but he bought you a special gift from the beach. She turned to him, her voice dripping with faux innocence. Brad, hurry and show her the present. Brad, eager to please, fished out a small box from his pocket. He opened it and pushed it toward me as if he were presenting a grand gesture. I bought it just for you. Go on. Take a look at it. His face gleamed with smug satisfaction as if he expected me to be overwhelmed with gratitude. I glanced at the box. Inside was a simple pair of floral-shaped earrings, the edges lined with tiny diamonds, and the petals crafted from blue gemstones. They were dainty, delicate. I took one look, then pushed the box back toward him without a second thought. No need. I am not interested in collecting trinkets. The room fell into an awkward silence. The atmosphere thickened with tension as Brad's face darkened. What do you mean by that, Rossi Jennings? I glanced at the X, a diamond bracelet wrapped around Candy's wrist, the kind of piece that screamed seven-figure luxury. My eyes drifted back to Brad's face, steady and unbothered, before I spoke. What I said is what I meant. You give her the bracelet. And me? What? A trinket? Do you think I'm only worth some throwaway gift? Brad, caught off guard, blinked in awkward silence, clearly not expecting me to call him out so directly. But Candy jumped in before he could recover, her voice dripping with that practiced sweetness. Rossi, don't be upset. Brad only gave me the bracelet because I liked it so much, but if it bothers you, I'll return it. Please don't let this come between you two, it's not worth it. Her words oozed with innocence, but her hands never moved to take off the bracelet, and instead, she blinked up at him with teary eyes, each drop perfectly timed, slipping down her cheeks like rain on cue. And of course, Brad folded. He pulled her into his arms like she was the one who needed comforting as he glared at me. Don't listen to her, Candy. That bracelet is yours. Once a gift is given, it stays with the person it's meant for. She's always been petty like this, getting worked up over nothing. I didn't bother responding. My attention had already returned to the glowing screen in front of me, but my silence only fueled his frustration. His face hardened as he wrapped his arm tighter around Candy and stormed out of the house. He made a show of slamming the door open wide, standing there waiting for me to give in like I always had, but not this time. I didn't even look up. Instead, I quietly added the cost of that bracelet, those millions he'd spent on her, into the asset division. With a final angry slam, he shut the door behind him. It wasn't long after they left that my parents called, asking me to come over for dinner. When I arrived at their place, who do I run into at the door but Brad? He looked at me, something like guilt flickering across his face before he smoothed it over with a forced calm. Are we going in together? He asked, trying to sound casual. I nodded and walked inside without a word. My parents hadn't forgiven him for what had happened at the wedding. Their coldness was obvious in every curt exchange, every sidelong glance. In the past, I might have stepped in to smooth things over, playing the mediator between my parents and Brad, but not now. This time, I let him sit there alone, awkward as the tension thickened around us. When dinner finally ended and I was ready to call a cab, Brad pulled up in his car. I opened the door to get in, only to see a sticker plastered across the front passenger seat. Reserved for Candy. He cleared his throat, obviously uncomfortable, and tried to explain. Candy insisted on putting it there. You don't sit here much anyway. I nodded, my voice calm and flat. Right, she's young. That's what girls her age do. He frowned as if he wanted to say more, but my phone buzzed before he could. I ignored him, focusing on the messages that needed my attention. By the time I was done, we had already arrived at the villa. I stepped out of the car, and before I could take another breath, Candy was already rushing toward him, practically throwing herself into his arms. Brad, I missed you so much, she chirped. Maybe it was because I was standing right there, but Brad looked uncomfortable again. He quickly pushed her away before she could plant a kiss on his cheek. Come on, Candy. "Stop acting so childish, you are too old for this," he said. She shot me a smug look, her voice laced with playful sweetness. "So what if I am? We're still super close." I decided to ignore their little exchange and walked straight into the house, but as soon as I reached the entrance, something caught my eye. A series of photos flashing across the electronic display on the wall. They were all of Candy and Brad. Some showed them cuddling while watching the sunrise. Others were of them dining together, and the last one, the most striking, showed them locked in a passionate kiss. I barely had time to process the images when Brad rushed over to my side, his voice panicked and desperate. "Rossi, these photos are fake. You have to believe me. Please don't be upset. It's not good for the baby." I turned to face him, catching the flicker of guilt in his eyes. I nodded, trying to mask the storm brewing inside me. "They look well taken, though." His confusion deepened, his brow furrowing. "Rossi, aren't you angry?" I kept my expression steady, calm. "No, not at all." Before he could press further, my phone rang. It was the doctor calling to discuss the details of my hospital stay tomorrow. Without giving Brad's reaction another thought, I walked away to take the call. By the time I returned to the event, the scene in front of me was disturbingly familiar. Brad stood there, shielding Candy, his voice raised as he berated someone in a heated exchange. I could easily piece together what had happened. Someone had spilled a bit of wine on the hem of Candy's dress, and now Brad was demanding an apology. The scene triggered a memory from years ago. We had been at another banquet, much like this one. I was standing near the champagne tower when Candy shoved me, seemingly by accident. I lost my balance, crashing into the tower and shattering the glasses as I fell. Champagne mixed with blood as it dripped down my body. I had looked to Brad for help, but instead, he unleashed his fury on me in front of everyone. "Can't you walk properly? Didn't you see the giant champagne tower right in front of you? Do you have any idea how important this event is? What's the point of someone as useless as you even being alive?" His final words cut deep, like a knife. "If I were you, I'd throw myself headfirst into the nearest wall." Snapping back to the present, I watched him now. The same man, protecting Candy over a minor accident. It was laughable, really. Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked away. Brad didn't come home that night. I wasn't surprised it wasn't the first time. But as I was finishing up in the bathroom the next morning, I saw him walking in with breakfast in hand. And trailing right behind him was Candy. When he saw me, he placed the breakfast on the dining table and, for once, offered an explanation. Candy was scared to be alone, so I sent her home. It was already the middle of the night, so I just stayed over. Candy, clinging to his arm, chimed in, her tone laced with mock innocence. "That's right, Rossi. You are not mad, are you?" I nodded without speaking. Brad seemed to pick up on my coldness, and with a rare gentleness in his voice, he placed the breakfast down and tried again. "Didn't you say you've been wanting to see that new movie? I have time today, I can take you." That movie, praised by everyone since its release, had been something I asked him about again and again. Each time he turned me down, claiming he was too busy with work. Yet just a few days later, I saw him in Candy's Instagram post. "The best movie with the best person," was the caption. Though their faces weren't visible, the picture of their hands intertwined said more than enough. Even if I hadn't seen his face, I would have known it was him. The faint trace of perfume on him now, not mine, made my decision easy. "No need," I said, my voice calm. "I've got something to do today." A flicker of discomfort crossed his face, like he hadn't expected the rejection. He opened his mouth to say something else, but Candy had already made herself comfortable on the couch, looking at me with wide-eyed innocence. "Rossi, when you say you are busy, does that mean you are meeting your university friend?" I shot her a sharp look, suspicion creeping in. The only person who knew I wanted to initiate a divorce was my lawyer, and that lawyer was an old university friend. No one else knew about the matter. Seeing my suspicious look, Candy quickly turned to Brad with a look of false innocence. Brad, don't be angry when you hear what I am about to tell you. A few days ago, my friend told me they saw Rossi with her university friend at a cafe, acting. She paused deliberately, feigning hesitation before continuing in a softer, fearful tone. Intimately. But maybe my friend was mistaken. After all, how could Rossi ever cheat on you? She loves you so much. The moment those words left her mouth, Brad's face twisted in fury. Without warning, he slammed his hand down, sending the breakfast on the table crashing to the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces. His eyes burned with rage as they locked onto me. Rossi, so you are not coming to the movies with me because you are sneaking around with another man? He spat. Do you think you are being fair to the child you are carrying? I glanced at the shards scattered across the floor but said nothing. Before I could speak, Candy, pretending to be the peacemaker, jumped in again. Brad, please don't get mad. Let's talk calmly. It's not all her fault, after all. Her mother also. But before she could finish that vile sentence, I grabbed the napkin from the table and threw it at her, my hand trembling with rage. She could slander me all she wanted, but she had no right to insult my mother. The napkin left a red mark on her face, and she immediately looked up at Brad with tear-filled, wounded eyes. As expected, he rushed over to her, lifting her arm in concern. Seeing her pitiful expression, he glared at me, pointing his finger with unrestrained fury. Rossi, you've disappointed me beyond words. Even if what Candy said was untrue, you had no right to lay a hand on her. His accusations came rapid fire. You should know better. The lie cut him off sharply, my voice cold. So you know she's lying. His face froze, caught in his own words, but it quickly shifted back to self-righteous indignation as he pointed at me again. Yes, I saw it too that day. But even so, you are still wrong to hit her. Apologize to Candy now, or we're getting divorced. A chill ran through my body, spreading like ice. I stared at him in disbelief, still holding on to a shred of hope, a final attempt to salvage what little remained between us. Brad, I said, my voice low but steady. I've scheduled an abortion. Will you go with me tomorrow? He scoffed, the sound dripping with mockery as if I had just told a ridiculous joke. Rossi, I've told you this before, Brad snapped, his tone sharp. You can't use your pregnancy as an excuse for your tantrums. Apologize to Candy right now or we go get divorced this instant. His words made me laugh in disbelief and anger. I reached into my bag, pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared long ago, and threw them onto the table in front of him. Fine. Sign. Let's go get divorced now. Brad's expression darkened the moment he saw the papers. He glared at me, his mood shifting from arrogance to something colder. And you, Rossi, you were still carrying our child, he sneered. You were just being sensitive because of the pregnancy. I can forgive you for acting impulsively. I met his gaze, unflinching, and after a long pause, I spoke one truth. Brad, no one knows better than you whether I'm being impulsive or not. His face froze. Candy, standing nearby, opened her mouth to speak but was cut off by Brad before she could say a word. Candy, we need to talk in private. Please go home for now, okay? She hesitated, her eyes widening as they darted to the divorce agreement and its detailed property division. Her expression twisted in anger, and she looked like she was about to start shouting at me, but Brad quickly ushered her out the door before she could cause a scene. The moment she left, his demeanor changed. His voice softened with a hint of pleading. Rossi, I know you were upset about how close Candy and I are, but trust me, I only see her as a sister. You will always be my wife, the one who holds the title of Madame in the Dawson family. Think about what would become of our child if we divorce now. Are you going to let them grow up in a broken home? I stayed silent, watching him intently. If you don't love me, I said, my voice steady and clear, we can divorce. Give Candy the title she has been fighting for, and maybe everyone will be happy about that. His face contorted with frustration,
and he angrily tossed the divorce papers aside. Amber, how could I not love? Before he could finish, his phone rang, and without needing to look, I knew it was Candy. That ringtone, a tune that had become an all-too-familiar reminder of her presence, echoed in the room. Under my unwavering gaze, Brad hesitated for just a moment before answering the call. Whatever was said on the other end made him instantly stand up. "Candy's in trouble. I need to go check on her," he said, his voice full of urgency. I didn't respond, keeping my face unreadable. I stared at him, my emotions locked behind an impassive facade. Before leaving, he leaned down as if to kiss me goodbye, but I instinctively pulled away. He froze, standing awkwardly, unsure of what to do next. "Rossi, I promise, after this, I will keep my distance from Candy," he insisted, his voice pleading. I picked up the divorce agreement from the floor, my voice cold and steady. "Meet me tomorrow morning at 9:00 a.m. at the Obstetrics and Gynecology Department of the Women's and Children's Hospital." Brad nodded eagerly, a flurry of promises escaping his lips as he rushed out the door, clearly eager to tend to the person waiting outside. I didn't say another word. I simply deleted and blocked all his contact information, shutting him out completely. The next morning, 9:00 a.m. came and went, but Brad never showed up. It didn't matter to me. My parents accompanied me to the hospital, offering their quiet support as I walked into the surgery room. The operating room was cold, and I could feel the chill seep into my bones. But nothing could compare to the coldness I felt when the forceps entered my body. As the anesthesia took hold, I slowly drifted into unconsciousness. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. My parents were there, and the moment my mother saw me stir, her eyes filled with tears. She grabbed my hand, her voice heavy with concern. "Rossi, does it hurt?" I smiled weakly, shaking my head. "No, Mom. They gave me anesthesia so it doesn't hurt." She looked as though she wanted to say more but hesitated. My father, who had been silent until now, sat stoically beside us. After a long silence, he finally spoke, his voice firm. "Mom, broke a..." But my mother continued to fret over me, worried about any potential complications from the procedure. Every day, she brought homemade meals, making sure I was recovering under her watchful eye. With her care, my strength gradually returned. By the second day, I was able to get out of bed and walk on my own. Following the doctor's advice, I took slow, steady steps around the hospital corridor, rebuilding my strength. My parents stayed close, still anxious but trying to give me space. When it was mealtime, my mother went to prepare food, and my father went to fetch water, leaving me alone for a brief moment. As I walked down the hall, I unexpectedly bumped into Brad, who was helping Candy walk. They froze when they saw me. There was an uncomfortable silence before Brad spoke, his voice uncertain. "Rossi, Candy had a progesterone rupture. I was really worried about her, so I brought her to the hospital," he explained. Then he added, "And I didn't know you were here. How are your test results?" I didn't want to engage with them and turned to leave, but before I could get far, Brad grabbed my wrist. He gripped my wrist angrily. "I'm the child's father. I'm your husband. I have the right to know the results of my own child's checkup." I tried to pull my hand back, but Brad held on tightly. Fed up, I slapped him across the face and sneered, "And you think you are fit to be a father?" Furious, he tightened his grip on my wrist, his voice brimming with anger. "I'm an old man, let me tell you, Rossi. Even if we get divorced, I will fight for custody of our child. You won't even get a chance to see them again." Before he could finish his threat, my father returned, holding the water he had gone to fetch. Upon seeing the scene, he didn't hesitate. He threw a punch that landed squarely on Brad's face. "And let me tell you something, Rossi. The child is gone, slut. And if you want custody, go dig through a trash can." Brad looked at me in disbelief, his hand trembling as he pointed at me, trying to say something before could speak. Candy suddenly collapsed, weakly calling out for him. "Hand, Brad." But this time, Brad didn't rush to her. His eyes remained fixed on me with rage and disbelief. Not wanting to escalate things further, my father quickly helped me back to the hospital room, worried something else might happen later. As my mother laid out the meal she had prepared, a knock came at the door. The next second, Brad stepped inside and said, "Dad, I came to see Rossi." My father's expression darkened immediately. His voice was icy. "Mr. Dawson, you must be joking. My wife and I don't dare accept being called your father, Dad, and Mom." Guilt filled Brad's face, and behind him, his parents followed. Brad's mother offered me an awkward smile, while his father, without a word, kicked Brad hard. Then Brad's father quickly turned to me with a placating tone. "Mom, Rossi, we've heard everything. It was all Brad's fault," he said. "He knows he was wrong. We are truly sorry you've been treated so poorly." My mother glared at him, about to speak, but I caught her wrist, stopping her. I gave her a look and spoke calmly. "Frenching, Mr. and Mrs. Dawson. You both know how Brad has treated me throughout our marriage all these years, but I don't want to dwell on the past. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., let's meet at courthouse to finalize the divorce." Brad's face turned pale. He walked to the side of the hospital bed and dropped to one knee, kneeling at my bedside. "Blue Rossi, I know I was wrong," he pleaded. "But please don't to divorce me. I truly can't live without you." Tears started to roll down from the corners of his eyes. I scoffed, looking at him with a mocking smile. "Monstered Brad, when you called me petty on our wedding day, you didn't feel any love for me. When you went on a honeymoon with Candy, you didn't feel any love for me. Now that we divorce, you suddenly feel like you love me again?" I sneered. But Che-Love is really cheap Brad's father. Enraged by my words, threw another punch at Brad, while his mother followed with a slap. Her slap wasn't as harsh as her heart was still clearly aching for her son. She tried to reach out and grab my hand, but when I dodged her touch, she didn't take offense. Instead, she spoke with a guilty expression. "Mom, Rossi, I know this whole thing is Brad's fault, but truly, he only ever saw Candy as a little sister." Bucks, do you know what they say? Hondo's fate? That brings two lovers together. It hasn't been an easy and Brad to get here so far in life together. And for you, what do you think of this? Just forgive Brad this one time. I promise, if he ever does this again, all the property does the house, car, and every share in the company, ons will go to you. Brad will walk away with nothing. Would that be enough for you? Brad's mother had always been the one with the final say in their family, and even now her words held weight. Brad knelt beside her, his eyes red as he looked at me. "Unstupid, I promise from now on, I will cut all ties with Candy. I swear I never contact her again, just give me one more chance." My parents wanted to object, but I gently pressed their wrists to keep them silent. I pulled a document from my bag, which a different divorce agreement than the one I had shown before. This one stated that Brad would leave with nothing. "That's fine, as long as Brad signs this divorce agreement," I said. Brad's mother frowned. Just as she was about to reach for the agreement, Brad snatched it up himself. Without hesitation, he pulled a pen from his pocket and signed his name. "Will you forgive me now?" Hot, his almost desperate expression. I smiled and took the signed agreement from his hands. "Mundidi," I said, I forgive you." After they left, my mother looked at me with disapproval. "Mom, Rossi, are you really going to stay with Brad?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Are you afraid that after the divorce you won't have anywhere to go? Don't worry, even if you divorce him, your father and I will still take care of you." I was touched by her words, my eyes welling up with tears. But I shook my head and gently reassured her. "Mom, don't worry. I am not going to stay with Brad. I have my reasons for doing this." She seemed ready to argue further, but when she saw the determination in my eyes, she simply sighed and shook her head in resignation. In the days that followed, Brad kept his word. He cut all ties with Candy, and blocking every contact in front of me began to dote on me every day, constantly checking in to make sure I was okay, as if terrified that something might go wrong. During this time, Candy tried to see him several times, but each time he rejected her. Still, I knew he wouldn't be able to hold out for long. Soon, the day of my follow-up checkup arrived. The night before, I casually mentioned it, pretending not to notice the guilty look in his eyes. Nikun, I have a checkup tomorrow. You will come with me, won't you? He quickly nodded, promising, Mr. Rossi, of course, don't worry. I will definitely go with you tomorrow. Satisfied, I smiled and nodded in return. Then, while he went out to buy something, I sent a message to Candy. Mayon, it seems you were not that important to Brad after all. He told me he will definitely go with me to the hospital tomorrow and said being with you was just a passing fling. Candy took the bait. After a back and forth, she finally responded, though her tone was defensive, just saying, I told you I knew. She wouldn't let me down. My gamble paid off. On the day of my follow-up appointment, Brad didn't show up. Instead, photos of him passionately kissing Candy outside her apartment made the headlines. We had climbed the financial ranks from nothing together. His family had some resources, but most of our success came after we got married. We built our business brick by brick in the toughest times. We even marketed our love story to boost product sales, using our relationship as a shield for the brand. Now, the moment those photos hit the internet, a storm of outrage followed. People flooded the comments, calling him heartless and opportunistic. They accused him of betraying the very foundation of our success now that he had made it big. But I didn't let it get to me. Instead, I sent him a message with the divorce appointment I had already scheduled at the courthouse. Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. He didn't respond. But when I got home, I found him sitting in the darkened living room. The room was cold, and he was crouched in a corner of the coffee table, surrounded by bottles of red and white wine. When he saw me, his eyes were red, and he looked up at me with desperation. Mom Rossi, you knew this day was coming, didn't you? He asked. I smiled at him, but there was no warmth in my gaze. You were the one who signed the divorce agreement, and you were the one who went to see Candy behind my back. How is any of this my fault? The plea in his eyes was almost unbearable. His entire demeanor was pitiful as he looked at me, humbled and broken. Rossi, I know I was wrong. We've been together for so long. You know me. I've never done anything to truly betray you. I know you love me, and I also know that no matter how far you went with Candy, you never crossed that final line. I spoke calmly, as if we were discussing someone else. Most of all, I know Candy was just a fleeting distraction for you. I know you've always loved me with every word I spoke. Hope returned to his eyes as I finished speaking. He was looking at me with renewed belief. Rossi, since you understand, does that mean we— But before he could finish, I shattered his hopes without mercy must number it Nikes over Brad. You already signed the divorce agreement, and it clearly states you will leave with nothing if you come with me tomorrow to finalize the divorce. We can reconsider the division of assets and maybe leave you with the company, but if you don't show up, I will take the divorce agreement to court, and you won't get a single cent. Brad stared at man disbelief as if he couldn't accept that these words had come from my mouth. Turl, are you really going to go through with this? His voice trembled with a mixture of disbelief and desperation. I glanced at the empty bottles on the able table, my gaze cold and unyielding. Must you know me once I make a decision and never go back on it? A bitter smile spread across his face as he leaned back and collapsed onto the floor. Defeated. And dear Rossi, you don't understand. His voice wavered as he stared up at the ceiling, tears of regret rolling down his face. Merch, when I was young, my parents were strict. They wouldn't let me have friends. Only Candy was willing to be my friend, so Riasa— He kept talking, pouring out the reasons for his attachment to Candy, the regrets and justifications, but I didn't care to listen. His excuses meant nothing to me. I turned away and headed to the bedroom, shutting out his voice as I prepared for bed. By the time morning came, even though I knew he didn't want to, Brad was left with no choice. For the sake of his family, he had to go according to my plans. The moment I held the divorce certificate in my hand, a wave of relief washed over me. I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Without sparing a glance at Brad's ashen face, I strode out of the courthouse, my steps brisk and full of purpose. Just as I neared the exit, I felt a tug on my wrist. Turning around, I saw him, heavily shovel his eyes rimmed with red, looking at me with a pitiful expression of desperation. "Rossi, give me one more chance, please," he pleaded, his voice trembling with Mel. "I can make things right, I swear, just trust me." I took his hand off with a smirk, my voice cold and sharp. Divorce, now there are no more chances." He opened his mouth as if to say something else, but had no interest in hearing him out. True to my word, I left the company in his hands, then packed my bags and headed for Yento P, the place I had once dreamed of us spending our honeymoon. I had imagined countless times what it would be like to come to this city with him driving through the streets together, but now that I was here alone, I realized I didn't need anyone to enjoy it. I explored new places, embraced different cultures, and indulged in local delicacies. The journey turned out to be everything I had hoped for, and more. 2 months later, I returned. By then, Brad's company had crumbled under the weight of scandal and mismanagement, and he had declared bankruptcy, just as I had planned. I swooped in to buy the company back at a fraction of its original value. This way, I let someone else bear the brunt of the public backlash, and I reclaimed the company at a bargain price. When I next saw Brad, it was in the CEO's office, his old office, the one that once held his name. This time, though, I entered not as an employee, but as the new owner. "Shh, long time no see," I greeted him with a casual smile. The man standing in front of me was a mere shadow of his former self, humbled, visibly worn down by the chaos of the past 2 months. "Rossi?" he began. I cut him off, my tone firm and commanding. "You should address me as the CEO now," I corrected him. I noticed a flicker of regret and sorrow in his eyes, but it quickly disappeared as he suppressed it. Brad moved out of the company within 3 days. With swift actions and decisive management, I revived the company's operations. However, to fully restore the brand's reputation, I had no choice but to release the provocative videos that Candy had sent me in the past. As soon as those videos went public, the internet erupted in outrage. Candy was bombarded with insults. Her old posts flooded with comments calling her shameless for knowingly being the other woman. Brad, the mastermind behind it all, didn't escape the storm either. His phone number was leaked, and his private information was plastered all over the web. Forced to disconnect, he shut off his phone and retreated from the internet entirely. Over time, the relentless pressure took a toll on his mental health. What started as a fear of leaving his home spiraled into crippling anxiety, leaving him unable to face anyone. His parents tried to suppress the media frenzy, but it was impossible to contain. The internet users, relentless in their pursuit, uncovered more secrets, pouring even more outrage into official channels. In the end, both of his parents were fired from their positions, just as they neared retirement. Meanwhile, my company soared to new heights. The scandal, ironically, had bolstered our image, and our profits skyrocketed, surpassing previous records by leaps and bounds. My net worth multiplied several times over. As for Brad, I hadn't seen him since our divorce. I only heard rumors about his deteriorating mental state. He either stayed locked inside his home or wandered the streets aimlessly, ignoring the countless attempts by his parents to intervene, choosing instead to lose himself in the digital world. Her family had always relied on Brad's support, so with his downfall, her fortunes crumbled. During the divorce proceedings, I filed a claim to recover all the money spent on her during our marriage. Though Brad hadn't bought her anything of great value beyond a diamond bracelet, it was enough to leave her financially ruined. At the company's annual party, the venue was ironically chosen at the very place where I had once held my wedding. This time I wasn't left behind by anyone. Instead, I was escorted to the stage like a queen, surrounded by admiration and respect. What I didn't expect was to see Brad again. After my speech, it was the dead of winter, with snowflakes gently drifting through the air. He stood outside, shivering in tattered clothes, a far cry from the confident man he once was. A few employees recognized him and whispered among themselves, pointing at his pitiful figure. I watched from the stage as he rushed toward me, excitement in his step. But just as he was about to reach me, The security guards intervened, stopping him in his tracks. Desperate and unhinged, he stretched out his hand toward me, pleading in a frantic voice. "Rossi, I truly know I was wrong. Please give me one chance." I didn't move toward him. Instead, out of consideration for our past, I had someone call his parents and ask them to come take him away. As the event wrapped up, I decided not to have the driver take me home. I preferred the solitude of driving myself, slowly making my way down the mountain road. What does it take to truly walk away from someone who's hurt you deeply, even when they beg for forgiveness? When do you know it's time to finally close the door on a chapter? Rossi's marriage to Brad has been nothing but turmoil, culminating in his betrayal with his former lover, Candy, on their wedding day. Despite Brad's apologies and attempts to salvage their marriage, Rossi sees through his manipulations and decides to go through with the divorce. After a calculated period of healing and reclaiming her independence, Rossi comes back stronger than ever, purchasing the company Brad once controlled. The tables turn, and now it's Brad who faces the consequences of his actions, as his mental state deteriorates amidst the scandal. Rossi, however, rises to power, with her success reflecting the strength and resolve she found in herself through all the pain. From the perspective of personal growth and empowerment, Rossi's journey is a testament to the strength that comes from facing betrayal and pain head-on. Brad's treatment of her over the years, a mixture of neglect, manipulation, and infidelity, could have broken anyone. But Rossi chooses to remain unbroken. By not retaliating in the heat of the moment and instead calmly planning her next steps, she reclaims her power. Her decision to divorce Brad, not out of spite, but out of a recognition of her own worth, is a crucial turning point. In the end, Rossi's rise to success isn't just about financial gain, but about reclaiming control over her life and refusing to let someone else's actions define her. She doesn't wait for Brad's remorse. She walks away and creates a future where she's in charge. Her story shows that sometimes the hardest choice is the one where you stop fighting for something that will never work, and instead fight for your peace, your happiness, and your future. Have you ever faced a situation where staying in a relationship would have been easier than leaving, but you knew deep down it was the right decision to walk away? How did you find the strength to do it? Rossi's journey is one of incredible strength and resolve. Do you think she made the right choice in walking away from Brad, or should she have given him another chance? What would you have done in her shoes? Share your thoughts and personal experiences in the comments below. Let's talk about the difficult decisions we make when it comes to letting go and moving on.
My name is Mara Collins, and I never expected to see my mother's face again, let alone in the back of an auditorium on the night of my greatest triumph. The roar of applause washed over me as I stood at the podium, clutching the award for my contributions to inclusive fashion. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for posterity. I should have been basking in the glow of success, but my eyes were locked on a familiar figure lurking in the shadows. Irene Collins, the woman who had abandoned me 15 years ago. I gripped the edges of the podium, willing my voice not to shake as I addressed the crowd. Thank you all for this incredible honor. When I started this journey, I never imagined I'd be standing here today. My gaze drifted back to where I'd spotted her, but Irene had vanished. Maybe I'd imagined her. Maybe the stress of the evening had conjured a ghost from my past. As I stepped off the stage, my assistant, Jade, rushed to my side. That was amazing, Mara. You killed it up there. I managed a weak smile. Thanks, Jade. Did you happen to see a woman with silver hair near the back of the room? Probably wearing something far too young for her. Jade's brow furrowed. No, I don't think so.
Why?
Is everything okay? I waved off her concern. It's nothing. Just thought I saw someone I used to know. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and small talk. I posed for photos, shook hands, and tried to push the memory of Irene's face from my mind. But as the crowd thinned and the excitement died down, I found myself alone in the empty auditorium. I sank into one of the plush seats, my mind drifting back to that day 15 years ago. The day I came home to an empty house and a note that would change my life forever. Mara, we're leaving. My mother's voice echoed in my head, as clear as if she were standing right next to me. Celeste has a real future, and you, well, you'll manage. I closed my eyes, fighting back the familiar sting of tears. Even after all these years, the pain of their betrayal felt fresh. A hand on my shoulder startled me out of my reverie. I looked up to see Edith, my grandmother, smiling down at me. "There's my girl," she said warmly. "I thought I might find you hiding out here." I stood and embraced her, breathing in the comforting scent of lavender that always clung to her clothes. "I'm so glad you could make it, Gran." Edith held me at arm's length, her eyes twinkling. "And miss my granddaughter's big night?" "Not a chance. Walter's sorry he couldn't be here, but his hip's been acting up again." I nodded, a pang of guilt hitting me. I'd been so caught up in my own drama, I'd forgotten about Grandpa's recent health issues. "How is he doing?" "Oh, you know your grandfather. Stubborn as an old mule. He insisted I come tonight, said someone had to be here to keep you from getting a big head." I laughed, feeling some of the tension leave my body. "Well, we can't have that, can we?" Edith's expression grew serious. "Mara, darling, is everything all right? You seemed distracted up there." I hesitated, unsure whether to burden her with my suspicions. But Edith and Walter had been nothing but supportive since the day I showed up on their doorstep, a scared and angry teenager with nowhere else to go. They deserved the truth. I think I saw Mom in the audience," I admitted. Edith's grip on my arm tightened. "Irene? Here? Are you sure?" I shook my head. "No, I'm not sure of anything. It was just for a moment, and then she was gone." Maybe I imagined it. My grandmother's eyes narrowed. "If that woman thinks she can waltz back into your life after all this time—" "It's okay, Gran," I interrupted, squeezing her hand. "Even if it was her, it doesn't matter. She made her choice a long time ago. I've moved on." Edith searched my face, clearly unconvinced. "You're right, of course. But remember, Mara, you're not alone anymore. Whatever happens, your grandfather and I are here for you. Always." I nodded, fighting back tears for an entirely different reason now. "I know, Gran. I know." The morning after the award ceremony, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly. Bleary-eyed, I reached for it, expecting another congratulatory message. Instead, I found a series of missed calls from an unknown number. As I stared at the screen, a text message popped up. "Mara, it's your mother. We need to talk." My heart raced. So I hadn't imagined her after all. I tossed the phone aside and stumbled out of bed, my mind reeling. After 15 years of silence, why now? I made my way downstairs, the smell of coffee guiding me to the kitchen. Grandpa Walter was already there, newspaper in hand. "Morning, kiddo," he said, peering over his reading glasses. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I slumped into a chair.
"Maybe, hey."
Mom tried to contact me. Walter's expression darkened. "Irene? What does she want?" "I don't know." I didn't answer. He reached across the table, clasping my hand. "You don't owe her anything, Mara. Remember that." I nodded, grateful for his unwavering support. "I know, Grandpa. But part of me wants to know why she's suddenly reappeared." "Whatever you decide, we're here for you," he said, giving my hand a squeeze. I spent the morning in a daze, trying to focus on work but constantly distracted by thoughts of Irene. By lunchtime, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Mara, is that you?" I swallowed hard. "Hello, Mom." "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so glad you called. I saw you at the ceremony last night. You were magnificent." Her praise, once so desperately craved, now felt hollow. "Why are you calling, Mom? Why now?" There was a pause, then a sigh. We need your help, Mara. Celeste and we're in trouble." Of course. They needed something from me. Why else would they reach out after all this time? "What kind of trouble?" asked, my voice cold. "It's complicated. Can we meet?" "There's so much to explain." I hesitated, torn between curiosity and self-preservation. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Please, Mara. We're family. The word family sparked a surge of anger in me. Family? You gave up the right to call us that when you abandoned me. I know, and I'm sorry. We made a terrible mistake. But please, give us a chance to explain. Against my better judgment, I found myself agreeing to meet them for coffee the next day. As soon as I hung up, I called Gran Edith. You did what? She exclaimed when I told her about the call. I know. It's probably a mistake. But I need to know why they left, Gran. I need closure. Edith sighed. I understand, darling. But promise me you'll be careful. Irene has a way of twisting things to her advantage. I will, I assured her. Will you come with me? I could use the support. Of course, she said without hesitation. I wouldn't let you face them alone. The next day, Gran and I arrived at the cafe early. I fidgeted with my cup, anxiety gnawing at my stomach. When the bell above the door chimed, I looked up to see Irene and Celeste walk in. Irene looked older, the years etched into the lines around her eyes and mouth. Celeste, once the golden child destined for modeling stardom, seemed diminished somehow, her shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible weight. They approached our table, Irene's face a mask of contrition. Mara, darling, thank you for meeting us. I stood, steeling myself. Hello, Mom. Celeste. As they sat down, I caught a glimpse of desperation in their eyes. Whatever had brought them back into my life, it was clear that the tables had turned. Now I held all the cards. So, I said, my voice steady, you said you needed my help. I'm listening. The tension in the cafe was palpable as Irene and Celeste settled into their seats. Gran Edith's presence beside me was a comforting anchor, reminding me of the strength I'd found since they'd left. Irene cleared her throat. Mara, darling, you've become such a success. We're so proud, Dash. Cut to the chase, Mom. I interrupted. What kind of trouble are you in? Celeste flinched at my tone, but Irene's face remained a mask of composure. It's complicated. The modeling career didn't pan out as we'd hoped. I snorted. You don't say. Mara, please, Celeste spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. We made mistakes. Terrible ones. But we need help. I leaned back, crossing my arms. And what exactly do you expect me to do? Irene reached into her purse, pulling out a stack of papers. We're in debt, Mara. Significant debt. The agencies, the photographers, the designers, they all want their money. As she slid the papers across the table, I caught glimpses of eye-watering figures. My stomach churned. How? I asked, incredulous. How did you manage to rack up this much debt? Celeste's eyes welled with tears. It was Mom. She kept pushing for more shoots, more exposure. Said we had to spend money to make money. Irene shot her a venomous look. I was trying to secure your future, Celeste. If you had just tried harder, Dash. Enough, Gran Edith interjected, her voice sharp. You can't blame your daughter for your poor decisions, Irene. I nodded, a surge of gratitude for my grandmother washing over me. She's right. This isn't Celeste's fault. It's yours, Mom. You're the one who dragged her into this mess. Irene's facade cracked, desperation seeping through. Please, Mara. We have nowhere else to turn. Your father. He left us when the money ran out. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Dad had left them too? For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered the years of loneliness, of feeling unwanted and discarded. That's awful, I said, my voice cold. But it doesn't change anything. You made your choice 15 years ago. You chose Celeste's career over me. Now you want me to bail you out. We're family, Irene pleaded. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. No, we're not. Family doesn't abandon each other. Family stands by you no matter what. I glanced at Gran Edith, who nodded encouragingly. My real family is sitting right here. I continued, gesturing to my grandmother. They took me in when you threw me away. They supported my dreams, believed in me when no one else did. Celeste burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. Irene reached out, trying to grasp my arm. Mara, please. We have nowhere else to go. I stepped back, out of her reach. That's not my problem. You made your bed. Now lie in it. As I turned to leave, Celeste's broken voice stopped me. I'm sorry, Mara. I'm so sorry for everything. I paused, looking back at my sister. For the first time, I saw her clearly, not as the golden child who'd stolen my parents' love, but as another victim of our mother's delusions. I know, Celeste, I said softly, but I can't help you. Not like this. With that, I walked out of the cafe, Grand Edith by my side. As we stepped into the sunlight, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For years, I'd carried the pain of their abandonment, letting it fuel my ambitions. But now, faced with their desperation, I realized I'd outgrown that pain. I'm proud of you, Mara, Grand Edith said, squeezing my hand. You stood your ground. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. Thanks, Gran. I couldn't have done it without you and Grandpa. As we walked home, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them. Not because of the family that had left me, but because of the one that had chosen to stay. The weeks following my confrontation with Irene and Celeste were a whirlwind of activity. I threw myself into my work, channeling my emotions into a new collection that pushed the boundaries of inclusive fashion even further. My team could sense the intensity radiating off me, but they matched my energy, working tirelessly to bring my vision to life. One particularly late night at the studio, my assistant Jade approached me cautiously. Mara, there's someone from Fashion Forward magazine here to see you. They want to do a feature on your brand. I looked up from my sketches, surprised. Fashion Forward was one of the most prestigious publications in the industry. Their endorsement could catapult my brand to new heights. Send them in, I said, straightening my posture and smoothing down my hair. The interviewer, a sharp-eyed woman named Vanessa, wasted no time getting to the heart of the matter. Mara Collins, your rise in the fashion world has been meteoric. What drives you to create such innovative, inclusive designs? I paused, considering my words carefully. Fashion should be for everyone, not just a select few. My designs are a reflection of the world I want to see, one where everyone feels seen and valued. Vanessa nodded, scribbling in her notebook. And your background? How has it influenced your work? For a moment, I was tempted to gloss over my past, to present a polished version of my story. But then I remembered the strength I'd found in facing my family, in owning my truth. I was abandoned by my parents when I was 15, I said, my voice steady. They chose to pursue my sister's modeling career, leaving me behind. But my grandparents took me in, showed me what unconditional love and support look like. My designs are a testament to that, to the idea that everyone deserves to feel beautiful and worthy, regardless of their circumstances. Vanessa's eyes widened. That's quite a story. How do you think your family would react to your success now? I shrugged, a wry smile playing on my lips. I wouldn't know. We're not in contact. The interview continued, delving into the technical aspects of my designs and my vision for the future of the brand. By the time Vanessa left, I felt drained, but oddly liberated. For the first time, I'd spoken publicly about my past, and the world hadn't ended. Little did I know that interview would change everything. A week later, the Fashion Forward feature hit newsstands. My phone exploded with notifications, congratulatory messages, interview requests, and a flood of new orders for my designs. But among the sea of notifications, one message stood out. Mara, I saw the article. We need to talk. Dad. My heart raced as I stared at the screen. After 15 years of silence, my father had reached out. I showed the message to Gran Edith, who frowned deeply. You don't owe him anything, Mara, she said, her voice laced with concern. I know, I replied, my finger hovering over the delete button. But something stopped me. But maybe I need this. For closure. Gran Edith squeezed my hand. Whatever you decide, we're here for you. I nodded, taking a deep breath before typing out a response. Okay. When and where? The reply came almost instantly. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., at the Riverside Cafe. As I set my phone down, a mix of emotions swirled within me, anxiety, curiosity, and a spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation, but hope for answers, for understanding. That night, as I lay in bed, memories of my father flooded back. His quiet presence, always overshadowed by Irene's domineering personality. The rare moments of connection we'd shared before everything fell apart. I wondered what version of Graham Collins I would meet tomorrow, the passive man who had allowed his family to be torn apart, or someone who had finally found his voice. As sleep finally claimed me, one thought echoed in my mind. Whatever happened at that cafe, I would face it on my terms. I was no longer the abandoned girl seeking approval. I was Mara Collins, fashion innovator and survivor. And nothing, not even the ghosts of my past, could shake that foundation. The Riverside Cafe buzzed with lunchtime chatter as I arrived, my heart pounding in my chest. I spotted him immediately, Graham Collins, my father, looking older and more worn than I remembered. His eyes lit up when he saw me, a mixture of pride and regret etched across his face. "Mara," he said, standing as I approached. "You look incredible." I nodded curtly, taking a seat across from him. "Hello, Dad." An awkward silence fell between us. He fidgeted with his coffee cup, clearly unsure where to begin. "I saw your interview," he finally said. "You've done so well for yourself." "No thanks to you," I replied, my voice sharper than I intended. He flinched but nodded. "I deserve that. Mara, I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am for what happened. For leaving you behind." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "Why now, Dad? Why reach out after all this time?" Graham sighed heavily. "Honestly, because I finally found the courage. Seeing you in that magazine, hearing your story, it made me realize how badly I'd failed you." As he spoke, a commotion near the cafe entrance caught my attention. My blood ran cold as I recognized the two figures making their way towards us, Irene and Celeste. "What is this?" I hissed, turning back to my father. "Did you set me up?" His eyes widened in genuine surprise. "No, Mara, I swear. I had no idea they'd be here." Before I could respond, Irene's saccharine voice cut through the air. "Mara, darling, what a delightful coincidence." I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "This is no coincidence. You planned this, didn't you?" Celeste at least had the decency to look ashamed, but Irene's face was a mask of innocence. "Of course not, dear. We were just in the neighborhood and spotted you through the window. Isn't this lovely? The whole family reunited at last." "We are not family," I spat, my composure cracking. "You made that clear when you abandoned me." Graham stood, placing a hand on my arm. "Mara, please. Maybe this is a chance for us all to talk, to clear the air." I jerked away from his touch. "Clear the air? There's nothing to clear. You all made your choices, and I've made mine." Irene's facade finally slipped, desperation seeping into her voice. "Mara, we need your help. The debts, they're overwhelming. We have nowhere else to turn." And there it was, the real reason for this ambush. Not reconciliation, not genuine remorse, but cold, hard cash. "So that's what this is about," I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You don't want me back. You want my money." Celeste stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "It's not like that, Mara. We've made mistakes, terrible ones. But we're family. Doesn't that count for something?" I looked at each of them in turn. Graham, guilt-ridden but still passive. Celeste, broken and desperate. And Irene, calculating even in her plea for help. For a moment, I saw them as they truly were, not the larger-than-life figures of my childhood trauma, but flawed, struggling humans. But then I remembered the years of loneliness, of feeling unwanted and discarded. I thought of Edith and Walter, who had shown me what true family meant. "Family?" I said, my voice steady. "Family doesn't abandon each other. Family stands by you no matter what. You're not my family. You're just ghosts from a past I've outgrown." With that, I grabbed my purse and turned to leave. Irene's hand shot out, grasping my arm. "Mara, please. We have nowhere else to go." I pulled away, fixing her with a steely gaze. That's not my problem. You made your bed 15 years ago. Now lie in it. As I walked out of the cafe, I heard Celeste's sobs and Irene's angry hiss. But I didn't look back. For the first time in years, I felt truly free of their shadow. Whatever guilt or obligation I had carried was gone, replaced by a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from Gran Edith. "Everything okay, dear?" I smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude for my real family. "Everything's perfect, Gran," I typed back. "I'm coming home." The week following the cafe confrontation passed in a blur of work and sleepless nights. I threw myself into finalizing designs for my upcoming collection, desperate to keep my mind occupied. But the ghosts of my past refused to stay buried. On Friday evening, as I was packing up to leave the office, my phone buzzed with a message from Gran Edith. "Dinner tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Your father and sister will be there. Please come, Mara." For me. My stomach churned. The last thing I wanted was another family showdown. But I couldn't refuse Gran Edith. She'd stood by me through everything. I owed her this much. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. I stood on my grandparents' porch, hand poised to knock, when the door swung open. Grandpa Walter's warm smile greeted me. "There's our girl," he said, pulling me into a hug. "Come on in. Everyone's waiting." The tension in the dining room was palpable as I entered. Dad and Celeste sat rigidly at the table, while Irene was notably absent. Gran Edith bustled about, laying out dishes with forced cheerfulness. "Mara, dear, have a seat," she said, gesturing to an empty chair. "I've made your favorite pot roast." I sat down, avoiding eye contact with my father and sister. The clinking of cutlery was the only sound for several uncomfortable minutes. Finally, Gran Edith broke the silence. "Now, I know there's been a lot of hurt and misunderstanding, but we're family. Surely we can find a way to move past this." Dad cleared his throat. "Mara, we're so sorry for everything. We made terrible mistakes." I set down my fork, my appetite gone. "Sorry doesn't erase 15 years of abandonment, Dad." Celeste spoke up, her voice trembling. "We know that, Mara. We're not asking for forgiveness. We just want a chance to explain." "Explain what?" I snapped. "How you all decided I wasn't worth taking along. How you chose Celeste's career over me." "It wasn't like that," Dad protested weakly. I laughed bitterly. "Then what was it like? Please enlighten me." Celeste's eyes welled with tears. "It was Mom. She had these grand delusions about my modeling career. Said we had to move to Washington for my big break." "And you just went along with it?" I asked, my voice rising. "You all just decided to leave me behind without a second thought?" "We thought you'd be better off with your grandparents," Dad said. "We were struggling, and your mother, she can be very persuasive." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "So that makes it okay? You thought I'd be better off, so you abandoned me? Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Gran Edith reached for my hand. "Mara, dear, please sit down. Let's talk this through calmly." But the dam had broken. Years of pent-up anger and hurt came pouring out.
"No, Gran.
They need to hear this. Do you know how many nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering what I'd done wrong? How many times I questioned my own worth because my own family didn't want me?" Celeste was openly sobbing now. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the span of minutes. "And now," I continued, my voice shaking with emotion, "now that I've made something of myself, now that I have money and success, suddenly you want to be a family again? Well, guess what? I don't need you anymore. I've built my own life, my own family." I turned to my grandparents, my voice softening. Grandpa, you're my real family. You stood by me when no one else would.
You believed in me, supported me."
That's what family does." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. Dad and Celeste looked shell-shocked, while Gran Edith and Grandpa Walter exchanged worried glances. Finally, Dad spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're right, Mara. We failed you. Terribly. And we don't deserve your forgiveness. But please, if there's any chance at all. I cut him off, my resolve hardening. There isn't. I'm not the same girl you left behind. I don't need your approval or your love anymore. I've outgrown you all. With that, I turned and walked out of the dining room, leaving behind the shattered remains of what was once my family. As I reached the front door, I heard Grand Edith call out my name, but I couldn't turn back. Not this time. I stepped out into the cool night air, taking a deep breath. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The confrontation I'd both dreaded and longed for was over. Now it was time to move forward on my own terms. I stormed out of my grandparents' house, my heart pounding and hands shaking. The cool night air did little to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. I had barely made it to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. Mara, wait. It was Celeste's voice, raw with emotion. I turned, ready to unleash another tirade, but the words died on my lips when I saw her. Gone was the polished, perfect sister I remembered. In her place stood a woman broken by years of unfulfilled expectations and shattered dreams. Please, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There's more you need to know. Against my better judgment, I nodded. 5 minutes. Celeste took a deep breath. The modeling career, it was all a lie. A sham orchestrated by Mom's delusions of grandeur. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. What? We never made it big in Washington, Celeste continued, her words tumbling out in a rush. There were no major contracts, no runways. Just a string of small-time gigs and Mom's increasingly desperate attempts to break into the industry. I leaned against my car, struggling to process this revelation. But the photos, the stories. All carefully curated lies, Celeste said, her eyes brimming with tears. Mom would stage photo shoots, create fake magazine spreads. She was obsessed with maintaining the illusion of success. The pieces started falling into place, the constant moves, the vague updates, the reluctance to visit. And Dad? Did he know? Celeste nodded miserably. He figured it out eventually. But by then, we were in too deep. The debts, the lies. It spiraled out of control. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, pity, and a strange sense of vindication. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserve the truth, Celeste said. And because I need you to understand, we were both victims of her dreams, Mara. I just realized it too late. The front door opened, and we turned to see Dad step out onto the porch. He looked older than ever, the weight of years of deception etched into every line on his face. Is it true? I called out to him. Was it all a lie? He nodded slowly, unable to meet my eyes. I'm so sorry, Mara. We should never have left you behind. It's the biggest regret of my life. I felt tears stinging my eyes, years of pent-up emotion threatening to overflow. And Mom? Where is she in all this? Celeste exchanged a look with Dad before answering. She's in a treatment facility. The stress of maintaining the facade.
It broke her, Mara.
She had a mental breakdown a few months ago. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. The image of my mother, always so poised, so in control, crumbling under the weight of her own delusions was almost too much to bear. I don't know what you want from me, I said, my voice cracking. Do you expect forgiveness? Understanding? No, Dad said, finally meeting my gaze. We don't expect anything. We don't deserve it. We wanted you to know the truth. To understand that leaving you wasn't about you not being good enough. It was about our own failures, our own weaknesses. I stood there, torn between the urge to run and the need for closure. Years of anger and resentment battled with a newfound understanding of the complex web of lies and delusions that had torn my family apart. I can't forgive you, I said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I hear you, and I understand, more than I did before. Celeste nodded, wiping away tears. That's more than we deserve. Thank you for listening, Mara. As I got into my car, I felt a strange sense of lightness. The truth, painful as it was, had lifted a burden I didn't even know I was carrying. I realized that true revenge wasn't about making them suffer or proving my worth. It was about living well on my own terms, free from the shadows of the past. I started the engine, catching one last glimpse of Dad and Celeste in the rearview mirror. They looked small, vulnerable, and for the first time, I saw them not as the larger-than-life figures of my childhood trauma, but as flawed, struggling humans. As I drove away, I felt the first stirrings of something I never expected to feel towards them again: compassion. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in years, I felt truly free to move forward, unburdened by the weight of unanswered questions and unresolved pain. In the weeks following the confrontation with my family, I threw myself into work with renewed vigor. The upcoming fashion show for my new collection became my sole focus, a tangible representation of everything I'd built and overcome. The morning of the show, I stood backstage, surrounded by the controlled chaos of models, makeup artists, and assistants. My phone buzzed with a text from Gran Edith. "We're here, darling. Break a leg." I smiled, picturing her and Grandpa Walter in the audience. They'd been my rock through everything, and having them here meant the world to me. As I made my final rounds, checking each model's outfit, I caught a glimpse of familiar faces in the crowd. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized Dad and Celeste, sitting quietly in the back row. They hadn't told me they were coming, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of the old anger and resentment. But then I took a deep breath, remembering the painful truths that had come to light. They were here, not to ask for anything, but to support me. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. The lights dimmed, and the show began. As each model strutted down the runway, showcasing my designs, I felt a surge of pride. These clothes weren't just fabric and thread. They were a testament to resilience, to the power of embracing one's true self. The final model emerged, wearing the centerpiece of my collection, a stunning gown that seamlessly blended elements of strength and vulnerability. As she reached the end of the runway, the audience erupted in applause. I stepped out for my final bow, my eyes scanning the crowd. I saw Gran Edith and Grandpa Walter, beaming with pride. I saw my team, cheering loudly. And in the back, I saw Dad and Celeste, their eyes shining with a mix of admiration and regret. As the applause died down, and people began to file out, I made my way through the crowd. Journalists clamored for quotes, buyers wanted to place orders, but I had somewhere else to be. I found my grandparents first, enveloping them in a tight hug. "You are magnificent, darling," Gran Edith whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Couldn't have done it without you," I replied, squeezing her hand. Then I turned, my eyes meeting Dad's across the room. He and Celeste approached cautiously, as if afraid I might send them away. "Mara," Dad began, his voice hesitant. "That was incredible. We're so proud of you." Celeste nodded, adding softly, "You've created something truly special here, Mara." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years of hurt and resentment, but also the lightness that came with understanding and forgiveness. "Thank you for coming," I said simply. "It means a lot." We stood there for a moment, the air thick with unspoken words and emotions. Then, surprising even myself, I said, "Would you like to join us for dinner? Gran and Grandpa are taking me out to celebrate." The shock on their faces was almost comical. Dad's eyes welled with tears as he nodded. "We'd be honored," he managed to say. As we left the venue together, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't a Hollywood ending where all was suddenly right with the world. But it was a start, a chance to build something new on my terms. Later that night, as we sat around the dinner table, the conversation flowed more easily than I could have imagined. There were still awkward moments, still wounds that needed time to heal. But there was also laughter and stories and a tentative hope for the future. As I looked around at the faces of my family, the grandparents who had stood by me, the father and sister trying to make amends, and the empty chair that represented a mother still battling her own demons, I realized something profound. Family isn't about blood. It's not about perfect endings or flawless relationships. It's about the people who stand by you, who support your dreams, who love you through your worst and celebrate your best. It's about second chances and hard-won wisdom. And as I raised my glass in a toast, I knew that my story, with all its pain and triumph, its heartbreak and healing, could be a beacon of hope for others, a testament to the power of resilience, self-worth, and the courage to forge your own path. To family, I said, my voice strong and clear, in all its forms. The glasses clinked, and in that moment, I felt truly, completely free. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities, and I was ready to embrace it all. My name is Helen Parker, and I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life. Or so my husband thinks. Are you sure about this, Helen? Quitting your job is a big deal. Brad's voice cuts through the early morning quiet of our kitchen, heavy with skepticism. I pause, my hand hovering over the resignation letter I've spent weeks agonizing over. The weight of the decision presses down on me, but I steel myself. It's time for a change, Brad. The job isn't fulfilling anymore. He sighs, shaking his head. I just don't understand why you'd throw away a stable career for some farming pipe dream. I bite back a retort. He's never understood my connection to my roots, to the land that raised me. It's not a pipe dream. It's an opportunity to make a real difference. In what? Cow-tipping technology. Brad snorts, his words dripping with disdain. I feel my jaw clench. Agricultural innovation, Brad. My parents' farm dash. Here we go again with the farm, he interrupts, rolling his eyes. You left that life behind for a reason, Helen. Why go backwards? It's not going backwards, I insist, my voice rising. It's about combining my skills with something I'm passionate about. Brad stands, his coffee mug hitting the counter with a sharp clank. Whatever. Do what you want. Just don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. As he storms out of the kitchen, I let out a shaky breath. This isn't how I imagined starting my day, but it's par for the course lately. Brad's been increasingly distant, critical. Something's off, but I can't put my finger on it. I gather my things, preparing to head to the office one last time. As I reach for Brad's jacket to hang it up, a folded piece of paper flutters to the floor. Curious, I pick it up. My heart stops as I unfold it. It's a letter, intimate and filled with longing, addressed to my husband. From someone named Sarah. The world tilts on its axis as I read, my vision blurring with unshed tears. Words like soulmate and our secret jump out at me, each one a dagger to my heart. I hear footsteps and quickly shove the letter into my pocket. Brad reappears, looking annoyed. Have you seen my blue tie? I swallow hard, forcing my voice to remain steady. Check the laundry room. He nods curtly and leaves. I lean against the counter, my mind reeling. How long has this been going on? How could I have been so blind? The sound of our daughter, Mia, bounding down the stairs pulls me from my spiraling thoughts. Morning, Mom, she chirps, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Ready for your big day? I plaster on a smile, determined not to let my world-shattering discovery show. As ready as I'll ever be, sweetie. Mia grabs an apple from the fruit bowl, studying me with her perceptive gaze. Are you okay? You look weird. Just nervous. I lie, hating the ease with which the deception comes. Big changes, you know? She nods, unconvinced. Dad's being a jerk about it, isn't he? I sigh. Your father. He just doesn't understand. But this is important to me, Mia. To our family. I get it, Mom, she says, her eyes shining with admiration. I think it's awesome what you're doing. Grandma and Grandpa's farm needs help, and you're gonna make it happen. Her words bolster me, reminding me why I'm doing this. Despite Brad's affair, my stomach clenches at the thought I have a purpose. A mission. Thanks, sweetheart. I manage, pulling her into a quick hug. I needed to hear that. As Mia heads out to catch her bus, I take a deep breath. The letter in my pocket feels like it's burning a hole through my clothes, but I push the hurt and betrayal aside. I have a resignation to deliver, a new chapter to begin. And as for Brad and his Sarah, well, revenge is a dish best served cold. And I'm just getting started. The familiar scent of hay and earth envelopes me as Mia and I step out of the car onto my parents' farm. It's a balm to my frayed nerves after the tumultuous week since discovering Brad's betrayal. Grandma, Grandpa, Mia calls out, racing towards the weathered farmhouse. I can't help but smile at her enthusiasm, so different from her usual teenage aloofness. My parents emerge, their faces lighting up at the sight of us. "Helen, sweetheart," Mom says, pulling me into a warm embrace. "We've missed you." Dad claps a hand on my shoulder. "How's that big city job treating you?" I hesitate, unsure how to broach the subject of my resignation. "Actually, Dad," I dash. My phone buzzes insistently, cutting me off. Brad's name flashes on the screen. I silence it, forcing a smile. "Let's talk inside, shall we?" As we settle in the cozy kitchen, the stark contrast between the warmth here and the tension at home hits me like a physical blow. Mom busies herself making coffee while Mia regales Dad with tales of her latest school project. "So, what's new?" Mom asks, setting steaming mugs before us. I take a deep breath. I've quit my job. The silence that follows is deafening. Then, to my surprise, Dad chuckles. "About time," he says. "That place never appreciated you properly." "John," Mom chides gently, but I can see the pride in her eyes. "What are you planning to do now, dear?" I launch into an explanation of my agricultural IT project, my words tumbling out in a rush. As I speak, I feel a weight lifting from my shoulders. Here, surrounded by the people who know me best, my dreams don't seem so far-fetched. "That's brilliant, Helen," Mom says when I finish. "Your father and I have been struggling to keep up with all the new farming technologies. Something like this could make a real difference." Dad nods in agreement. "You always did have a knack for problem solving. Remember when you rigged up that automated watering system for the greenhouse?" Mia's eyes widen. "You did that, Mom? That's so cool." I feel a flush of pride at my daughter's admiration. It's a stark contrast to Brad's dismissive attitude. As if on cue, my phone buzzes again. This time, it's a text. "Where are you? We need to talk." I ignore it, focusing instead on Mia's excited chatter about helping her grandparents for the weekend. But the messages keep coming, each one more demanding than the last. "Everything okay?" Mom asks, noticing my distraction. I force a smile. "Just work stuff. Nothing important." But as the day wears on, Brad's texts become increasingly aggressive. By evening, I'm struggling to maintain my composure. "Helen," Dad's voice breaks through my thoughts. We're sitting on the porch, watching the sun set over the fields. "What's really going on?" I hesitate, then the whole story comes pouring out. The letter, Brad's affair, his belittling of my dreams. To my surprise, I find myself choking back tears. Dad listens silently, his weathered face creased with concern. When I finish, he takes my hand in his calloused one. "You listen to me, Helen. You're stronger than you know. Don't let anyone, not even your husband, make you doubt yourself." "Your father's right," Mom adds, joining us. "We raised you to stand up for what you believe in. If this project is what you want, then you go after it with everything you've got." Their unwavering support fills me with a renewed sense of purpose. I look out over the farm, imagining the possibilities my project could bring. Just then, Mia bursts onto the porch, her face flushed with excitement.
"Mom,
"Grandpa says I can help milk the cows tomorrow morning.
can I?"
Please?" I laugh, truly laugh, for the first time in days. "Of course, sweetie. We'll do it together." As night falls and we head inside, I feel a sense of peace settle over me. Whatever challenges lie ahead, with Brad, with my project, I know I have the strength to face them. Here, on this farm, surrounded by the love of my family, I've rediscovered my roots. And from these roots, I'll grow stronger than ever. The sleek glass and steel of the company headquarters feels a world away from the comforting warmth of my parents' farm. I straighten my jacket, clutching my presentation materials close as I stride towards the boardroom. Today's the day I pitch my agricultural IT project, and my stomach is a knot of nerves and determination. As I push open the heavy doors, the chatter inside dies down. A sea of expectant faces turns towards me, some curious, others skeptical. I spot my boss, Steve Carmichael, at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Parker, he nods, gesturing for me to begin. The floor is yours. I take a deep breath, channeling the strength I found on the farm. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm here to present a revolutionary approach to modernizing our agricultural sector. As I launch into my presentation, I can feel the energy in the room shift. Eyes that were initially glazed with boredom begin to spark with interest. I outline my vision for integrating cutting-edge IT solutions with traditional farming practices, explaining how it could revitalize struggling family farms like my parents. Imagine a system that could predict crop yields with unprecedented accuracy, I say, my voice growing more confident. Or drones that could monitor vast fields for signs of disease or pest infestation before they become catastrophic. I see a few board members lean forward, intrigued, but others still look doubtful. This all sounds very ambitious. One executive interrupts. But is there really a market for this? Most farmers I know can barely operate a smartphone, let alone advanced AI systems. I've anticipated this question. That's precisely why our solution needs to be intuitive and user-friendly, I counter. We're not just selling technology, we're offering a lifeline to an industry that's the backbone of our country. The discussion that follows is heated. Questions fly at me from all directions, but I stand my ground, drawing on years of experience both in IT and on the farm. As the debate winds down, I can sense the tide turning in my favor. Finally, Steve clears his throat. Well, Mrs. Parker, you've certainly given us a lot to think about. The board will need time to deliberate, but I think I speak for everyone when I say your proposal has merit. We'll be in touch with our decision soon. As I gather my things, a mix of relief and anticipation washes over me. I've done all I can. Now it's out of my hands. Stepping out of the building, I check my phone. 3 missed calls from Brad. I sigh, my momentary high deflating. Reluctantly, I call him back. Where have you been? His voice is sharp, accusatory. I've been trying to reach you all morning. I had an important meeting, Brad. I told you about it last week. Oh, right, your little farming project, he scoffs. How'd that go? Did they laugh you out of the room? His words sting, but I refuse to let him dampen my spirits. Actually, it went very well. The board seemed impressed. There's a pause on the other end. When Brad speaks again, his tone has shifted to something almost saccharine. That's great, honey. Really? Listen, why don't we go out to dinner tonight to celebrate? Just the two of us. I hesitate, torn between suspicion and a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, he's genuinely trying to be supportive. I'll think about it. I need to pick up Mia from her study group first. Fine, he says, the edge creeping back into his voice. Just don't be too late. As I hang up, a text comes through from an unknown number. My blood runs cold as I read it. He doesn't deserve you. You deserve so much better. Sarah. It has to be. How did she get my number? Does Brad know she's contacting me? I lean against my car, suddenly feeling dizzy. Just when I thought I was making progress, gaining control over my life, this happens. But as the initial shock fades, I feel a new resolve hardening within me. I won't let Brad or his Sarah derail me. Not when I'm so close to achieving something meaningful. Whatever game they're playing, I refuse to be a pawn in it. With renewed determination, I start the car. I have a daughter to pick up, a future to plan, and a marriage to reevaluate. The road ahead may be rocky, but for the first time in years, I feel equipped to navigate it. The clock on the nightstand blinks 11:43 p.m. as I slip into the house, exhausted but exhilarated. The board's tentative approval of my project still buzzes in my veins, a small victory that feels monumental after years of stagnation. You're late. Brad's voice, cold and accusatory, cuts through the darkness. I flick on the light, revealing him slouched in his armchair, an empty glass dangling from his fingers. I told you I had a late meeting, Brad. It went well, by the way. He snorts, a sound of pure derision. Oh yes, your little farming project. Tell me, Helen, When did you become such an expert on agriculture? Last I checked, you were just a mid-level IT manager. His words sting, but I refuse to let him see how much. I grew up on a farm, Brad. Or have you forgotten that too? How could I, he sneers, rising unsteadily to his feet. It's all you ever talk about lately. Helen, the farm girl, here to save the day with her magical computers. I take a deep breath, trying to keep my voice level. This isn't just about my parents' farm. It's about revolutionizing an entire industry. The board sees the potential dash. The board, Brad interrupts, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I'm sure they were just falling over themselves to throw money at your little pet project. Actually, they were quite impressed. I counter, feeling my patience wearing thin. They've agreed to a trial run. For a moment, something flashes in Brad's eyes. Surprise, maybe even a flicker of pride. But it's quickly replaced by his usual disdain. Well, don't get too excited. They'll probably pull the plug as soon as they realize how naive this whole idea is. Maybe your naivety comes from growing up on a farm, he adds with a sneer. That's the last straw. Weeks of pent-up frustration and hurt come boiling to the surface. Better that than being blind to your own faults. I snap back, my voice trembling with anger. Brad recoils as if I've slapped him. What's that supposed to mean? For a split second, I consider confronting him about Sarah, about the letter I found. But something holds me back. Instead, I say, it means you're so caught up in your own insecurities that you can't even be happy for your wife's success. Success, he scoffs. You haven't succeeded at anything yet. You're chasing some ridiculous dream instead of focusing on your real job, being a wife and mother. His words hit me like a physical blow. My job? Is that all I am to you? Some 1950s housewife whose opinions don't matter? At least then you knew your place, Brad mutters, but I hear him clearly. The room seems to spin around me as the full weight of his words sinks in. This man, who once supported my dreams, now sees me as nothing more than an accessory to his life. My place, I repeat, my voice eerily calm, is wherever I choose it to be. And right now, that's pursuing a project I believe in, with or without your support. Brad's face contorts with anger. You ungrateful dash, he takes a step towards me, fists clenched at his sides. For the first time in our marriage, I feel a flicker of fear. But I stand my ground, meeting his gaze steadily. Don't, I warn, my voice low. Don't you dare. He stops, confusion and shame warring on his face. Finally, he turns away, stomping towards the bedroom. Do what you want. He spits over his shoulder. But don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. The slam of the bedroom door echoes through the house. I sink onto the couch, my body shaking with adrenaline and suppressed tears. In the silence that follows, I hear a soft footstep on the stairs. Mia stands there, her face pale and worried. Mom, she whispers. Are you okay? I force a smile, patting the seat beside me. As Mia curls up next to me, I realize with startling clarity that this can't go on. For both our sakes, something has to change. And for the first time, I allow myself to consider a future without Brad in it. A month has passed since the board's approval, and I stand in Steve Carmichael's office, my resignation letter in hand. The past weeks have been a whirlwind of preparation, late nights, and clandestine meetings with potential investors. Now, it's time to take the leap. Are you absolutely sure about this, Helen? Steve asks, his brow furrowed with concern. I nod, my resolve unwavering. I am, Steve. This project needs my full attention, and I can't give it that while juggling my responsibilities here. He sighs, then surprises me with a smile. Well, I can't say I'm not disappointed to lose you, but I admire your courage. The board's agreed to a licensing agreement for your agricultural IT system. You'll have our full support. Relief washes over me.
Thank you, Steve.
This means everything. As I leave the office, a weight lifts from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I feel truly in control of my destiny. My elation is short-lived. As I pull into our driveway, I see Brad's car already there. He's home early, and my stomach knots with apprehension. I find him in the kitchen, a tumbler of whiskey in hand despite the early hour. "So," he says, his voice dangerously calm, "you actually went through with it." I straighten my spine, bracing for the storm. "Yes, I did. The company's agreed to license my project. I'm going independent, Brad." His laugh is bitter, cutting. "Independent? Is that what you call throwing away a stable career for some pipe dream?" "It's not a pipe dream," I counter, my voice steady. "It's a viable business opportunity, one that could revolutionize farming dash." "Oh, spare me the sales pitch," Brad interrupts, slamming his glass down. "You're so caught up in this fantasy that you can't see what you're doing to this family." His words ignite a fire in me. What I'm doing to this family? I'm trying to build something meaningful, something that could secure our future and help countless others. Brad's face contorts with rage. "Your place is here, Helen, with your husband, your daughter, not gallivanting around playing farmer with your computers. My place," I spit back, "is wherever I choose it to be. And right now, that's pursuing my dreams, with or without your support." He advances on me, his eyes blazing. For a moment, I think he might strike me, but he stops short, his fists clenched at his sides. "You ungrateful bitch," he hisses. "After everything I've done for you, dash." "Everything you've done?" I laugh, the sound harsh and unfamiliar. "You mean like having an emotional affair with Sarah?" Brad freezes, the color draining from his face. "How did you dash?" "I found the letter, Brad. I know everything." The silence that follows is deafening. Brad's mouth opens and closes, but no words come out. In that moment, looking at the man I once loved, now reduced to a sputtering, angry shell, something inside me snaps. "I want a divorce," I hear myself say, the words ringing with finality. Brad's eyes widen in shock, then narrow with fury. "You can't do this to me," he growls. "You're nothing without me, Helen. Nothing." But his words no longer have the power to hurt me. I meet his gaze steadily, my voice calm and resolute.
No, Brad.
"I'm everything without you, and it's time I started living like it." I turn to leave, but Brad grabs my arm. "This isn't over," he snarls. "You'll regret this, Helen. I'll make sure of it." I wrench my arm free, my heart pounding but my resolve unshaken. "Threaten me all you want, Brad. But remember, I'm not the scared farm girl you married anymore. I'm a woman who knows her worth, and I'm done letting you or anyone else make me doubt it." As I walk away, leaving Brad sputtering and raging behind me, I feel a sense of liberation I haven't experienced in years. The road ahead will be challenging, fraught with obstacles both personal and professional. But for the first time in a long time, I'm ready to face those challenges head-on. My new life begins now, and there's no turning back. The house is eerily quiet as I sit in the dimly lit living room, my mind racing with the events of the day. Brad stormed out hours ago, leaving a trail of broken promises and shattered trust in his wake. I've been staring at my phone, debating whether to call my parents or a lawyer, when I hear soft footsteps on the stairs. Mia appears in the doorway, her face pale and drawn in the low light. "Mom," she says hesitantly, "are you okay?" I heard everything. My heart sinks. I'd hoped to shield her from the worst of it, but of course, she'd been aware. Mia's always been perceptive beyond her years. "Oh, sweetheart," I sigh, patting the seat beside me. "Come here." She curls up next to me, looking so much younger than her 16 years. For a moment, we sit in silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. Finally, Mia speaks, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're going to divorce Dad, aren't you?" I take a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Mia, your father and we've been having problems for a long time. I thought we could work through them, but he's awful to you." Mia interrupts, her voice suddenly firm. "Mom, you deserve better. He's terrible." Her bluntness startles me. "Are you sure?" I ask, my voice wavering. "This would mean big changes for all of us." Mia nods, her eyes shining with a mixture of tears and determination. "Yes, I'm sure. And I want to live with Grandma and Grandpa. I blink, taken aback by her decisiveness. You've thought about this, haven't you? She nods again. Ever since that weekend at the farm. I saw how happy you were there, Mom. How relaxed. And I realized, I can't remember the last time I saw you like that at home. Her words hit me like a physical blow, bringing tears to my eyes. Oh, Mia, I whisper, pulling her close. I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to feel caught in the middle of this. I'm not caught in the middle, she insists, her voice muffled against my shoulder. I'm on your side, Mom. Always. As I hold my daughter, feeling her unwavering support, something shifts inside me. The last lingering doubts about my decision to leave Brad dissolve, replaced by a steely resolve. Okay, I say, gently pulling back to look Mia in the eye. If this is what you want, we'll make it happen. But I need you to understand it won't be easy. Your father, he might not take this well. Mia's jaw sets in a determined line that reminds me so much of myself at her age. I don't care. He doesn't get to treat you like this anymore. We deserve better. I feel a surge of pride mixed with a twinge of sadness. My little girl has grown up so fast, forced to confront adult realities far too soon. But her strength gives me courage. You're right, I say, squeezing her hand. We do deserve better. And we're going to build that better life, together. Just then, my phone buzzes with a text. It's from Brad. This isn't over. You'll regret this, Helen. I'll make sure of it. I show the message to Mia, watching her face harden. See, she says. That's not love, Mom. That's control. Her words echo in my mind, crystallizing everything I've been feeling but couldn't quite articulate. You're absolutely right, sweetheart, I say, a newfound strength in my voice. And it ends now. I stand up, suddenly energized despite the late hour. First thing tomorrow, we're calling Grandma and Grandpa. We'll stay with them while we sort things out legally. Mia jumps up, her eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and relief. Really? We're really doing this? I nod, pulling her into a fierce hug. We really are. It won't be easy, but we're strong. We'll get through this together. As I hold my daughter, I feel a sense of peace settling over me. The road ahead will be challenging, fraught with legal battles and emotional turmoil. But for the first time in years, I'm not facing it alone. With Mia by my side and the support of my parents, I know we can weather whatever storms are coming. Tomorrow we start our new life. And Brad? He's about to learn that the women in this family are a force to be reckoned with. The kitchen is bathed in harsh fluorescent light as I stand, arms crossed, waiting for Brad to come home. On the counter lies a folder containing printouts of text messages, photos, and emails, irrefutable evidence of his betrayal. Mia discovered them while using Brad's laptop for a school project, and the weight of her disappointment hangs heavy in the air. The front door slams, and Brad's unsteady footsteps echo through the house. He stumbles into the kitchen, reeking of whiskey and cheap perfume. His eyes narrow when he sees me. What's this, an ambush? He slurs, a sneer twisting his features. I take a deep breath, steeling myself. We need to talk, Brad. About Sarah, about your affair, about everything. He freezes, color draining from his face. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammers, but his eyes dart to the folder on the counter. Don't lie to me, I say, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. Not anymore. I have proof. I open the folder, spreading out the damning evidence. Brad's eyes widen as he sees the intimate text messages, the clandestine photos, the love letters he thought he'd hidden so well. You didn't just betray me, I declare, my voice rising. You disappointed our daughter. Mia found these, Brad. Do you have any idea how much you've hurt her? Brad's face crumples, a mixture of shame and desperation. I'm sorry, he pleads, reaching for me. Helen, please. Let's try to work this out. I'll do anything. I step back, revulsion coursing through me at his touch. There's nothing to work out, Brad. It's over. I want a divorce. His demeanor shifts instantly, anger replacing remorse. A divorce, he snarls. After everything I've done for you? You're nothing without me, Helen. Nothing. No. I counter, my voice steady and strong. I'm everything without you, and it's time I started living like it. Brad lunges forward, his hand raised as if to strike me. But before he can, a voice rings out from the doorway. Don't you dare touch her. We both turn to see Mia standing there, her face a mask of fury and determination. She moves to stand beside me, her hand finding mine. Mia, Brad says, his voice softening. Sweetheart, this is between your mother and me. You don't understand, Dash. I understand perfectly, Mia interrupts, her voice cold. I understand that you're a liar and a cheat, that you've hurt Mom over and over, and I won't let you do it anymore. Brad's face contorts with rage. You ungrateful little Dash. That's enough. I shout, stepping in front of Mia protectively. You don't get to speak to her like that. Not ever again. For a moment, the kitchen is silent save for our heavy breathing. Then Brad's shoulders slump, the fight draining out of him. What do you want from me? He asks, his voice hollow. I take a deep breath, squeezing Mia's hand for support. I want you to leave. Tonight. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce proceedings. Brad's eyes dart between Mia and me, searching for any sign of weakness. Finding none, he nods slowly. Fine, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll go. But this isn't over, Helen. You'll regret this. As he turns to leave, Mia's voice stops him.
No, Dad.
You're the one who'll regret this. You've lost us both. The finality in her tone seems to hit Brad harder than any physical blow. He stumbles out of the kitchen without another word, leaving Mia and me standing in the aftermath of the confrontation. As the front door slams shut, I pull Mia into a tight embrace. I'm so proud of you, I whisper, my voice thick with emotion. You were so brave. Mia hugs me back fiercely. We both were, Mom. We both were. As we stand there in our kitchen, the air feels lighter somehow. The road ahead won't be easy, but for the first time in years, I feel truly free. With Mia by my side and the strength I've rediscovered within myself, I know we can face whatever challenges lie ahead. The truth has been exposed, the lies unraveled. And from the ashes of this broken marriage, a new life is ready to bloom. The sun rises over the sprawling fields of my parents' farm, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. I stand on the porch of my newly built office, a modern structure that stands in stark contrast to the weathered barn nearby. It's been a year since the divorce was finalized, a year of challenges, growth, and unexpected triumphs. My agricultural IT business, born from that initial pitch to my former company, has flourished beyond my wildest dreams. Farmers across the state have embraced our technology, seeing their yields increase and their workloads decrease. But more than the financial success, it's the pride in my parents' eyes that means the most to me. Helen, my father's voice calls from inside. The new irrigation system is up and running. You've got to see this. I smile, following him into the fields. The once struggling farm is now a testament to innovation, with drones buzzing overhead and smart sensors nestled in the soil. My mother joins us, her face beaming with joy. I never thought I'd see the day, she says, squeezing my hand. You've breathed new life into this old place, Helen. As we walk through the thriving crops, I spot Mia in the distance, bent over a tablet as she analyzes data from our latest experiment. She's taken to the business with an enthusiasm that warms my heart, finding her own path in the intersection of technology and agriculture. Mom, she calls out, waving us over. These results are incredible. The new drought-resistant strain is outperforming all our projections. I feel a surge of pride as I look at my daughter, so confident and passionate. The past year hasn't been easy for her, adjusting to a new school, dealing with the fallout of the divorce, but she's emerged stronger and more determined than ever. As we discuss the data, my phone buzzes. It's a news alert about Brad. His company has filed for bankruptcy, his career in shambles after a series of poor decisions and burned bridges. For a moment, I feel a twinge of sadness for the man I once loved, but it passes quickly. We've both made our choices, and I know I made the right one. Everything okay? Mia asks, noticing my distraction. I nod, smiling. Everything's perfect, sweetheart. As the day winds down, we gather on the porch, watching the sun set over the fields. My parents settle into their rocking chairs, while Mia and I lean against the railing. You know, my father says, his voice thoughtful, I was worried when you first told us about your plan. Thought you were taking on too much, risking too much. But seeing all this, he gestures to the thriving farm around us. Your mother is right. The future is bright. Mia grins, nudging me with her shoulder. See, Mom? Grandpa agrees with me. We're going to change the world, one farm at a time. I wrap my arm around her, feeling a sense of contentment I haven't experienced in years. We already are, sweetheart. We already are. As night falls and the first stars appear in the sky, I reflect on the journey that brought us here. The pain of betrayal, the fear of starting over, the challenges of building something new, all of it led to this moment. A moment of peace, of purpose, of family united in a shared vision. Brad's words from that fateful night echo in my mind. You're nothing without me. How wrong he was. I'm everything I was always meant to be, an innovator, a daughter, a mother, a woman standing proudly on her own 2 feet. Looking out over the fields that have been in my family for generations, now transformed by the technology of the future, I feel a sense of completion. This is more than just a business success or a personal triumph. It's a legacy, a bridge between past and future, a testament to the strength that comes from staying true to oneself. As Mia chatters excitedly about her plans for expanding the business, I smile, filled with hope for the future we're building together. The crops around us stand tall and strong, a reflection of our own resilience and growth. This is our rebirth, our new beginning. And it's more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. My name's Clara, and I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who eavesdrops on her husband's phone calls. But here I am, pressed against the kitchen door, my heart pounding as I strain to catch every word. She's clueless, Lydia. Absolutely clueless. Jack's voice drifts through the crack, dripping with disdain. Clara's so caught up in her little homemaker routine, she wouldn't notice if I danced naked in front of her with a neon sign. I clamp a hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp. Lydia. That's the name of his new assistant, the one he's been working late nights with for the past few months. And what about Anna? A woman's voice, silky and amused. Doesn't she notice Daddy's absence? Jack's laugh is cold, unfamiliar.
Please.
The kid's 7. As long as I bring her a new toy every week, she's happy. Clara does all the heavy lifting anyway. My fingers dig into the doorframe, splinters pricking my skin. How dare he? How dare he speak about our daughter like that? You know, Jack continues, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Sometimes I wonder why I even bother coming home. It's all so mundane, predictable. But you, Lydia? You're anything but predictable. Flatterer, Lydia purrs. So, when are you going to leave her? The silence that follows is deafening. I lean in closer, my ear practically pressed against the door. Soon, Jack finally says. I just need to figure out how to do it without losing everything. You know how these things go. She'd take me for all I'm worth. I stumble back from the door, my legs suddenly weak. The kitchen spins around me, familiar surfaces blurring into a nauseating whirl of color. I grab the counter to steady myself, knocking over a vase of fresh-cut flowers. They scatter across the floor, petals crushed beneath my feet. Clara? Jack calls out, his voice sharp with alarm. Is that you? I freeze, panic rising in my throat. What do I do?
Confront him now?
Pretend I didn't hear? Before I can decide, the kitchen door swings open. Jack stands there, phone still in hand, his face a mask of practiced concern. Honey, are you all right? I heard a crash. I look up at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. 15 years of marriage, and I've never seen him so clearly. I'm fine, I managed to choke out. Just
clumsy.
knocked over the flowers. Jack's shoulders relax, relief evident in his eyes.
He thinks I don't know.
He thinks I'm still his clueless, predictable Clara. Let me help you clean that up, he says, already reaching for the broom. No, the word comes out sharper than I intended. I force a smile, softening my tone. No, it's okay. I've got it. Weren't you on a call? Jack hesitates, his eyes searching my face. For a moment, I'm terrified he'll see right through me, see the rage and betrayal boiling just beneath the surface. But he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. I'm just his mundane, predictable wife, after all. Right, he says, backing out of the kitchen. I should get back to that. Important client. As the door swings shut behind him, I sink to the floor amidst the scattered flowers. Tears blur my vision, but I blink them away furiously. This isn't the time for crying. This is the time for action. I pick up a crushed rose, its deep red petals stained darker, where my tears have fallen. As I stare at it, something hardens inside me. A resolve, cold and unyielding as steel. Jack thinks I'm clueless? Predictable? Well, he's about to learn just how wrong he is. I may be a homemaker, but I'm also a mother. And there's nothing more dangerous than a mother protecting her child. I stand up, brushing dirt from my knees. It's time to show Jack exactly what his mundane, predictable wife is capable of. Let the games begin. I sit at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee growing cold between my hands as I stare at our wedding photo. Jack's arm is around my waist, his smile genuine and warm. Where did that man go? Mommy, look what I drew. Anna's voice breaks through my reverie. She bounds into the kitchen, a colorful drawing clutched in her small hands. I force a smile, pushing aside my dark thoughts. Let's see, sweetheart. Anna proudly displays her artwork, a stick figure family holding hands. That's you, me, and Daddy, she explains, pointing to each figure. My heart clenches. If only she knew the truth. It's beautiful, Anna. I manage, pulling her into a hug. Why don't you go hang it on the fridge? As she skips away, I'm hit by a wave of memories. Jack and I on our honeymoon, laughing as we got caught in a sudden rainstorm. The day we brought Anna home from the hospital, Jack's eyes filled with tears of joy. When did it all start to change? I think back to the subtle shifts I'd ignored. The late nights at the office that became more frequent. The way his eyes would dart to his phone whenever it buzzed. The gradual emotional distance that I'd chalked up to work stress. God, I'd been so blind. The front door opens and Jack's voice calls out, I'm home. Anna squeals with delight, running to greet him. I stay seated, steeling myself. Jack enters the kitchen, Anna perched on his hip. He sets her down and moves to kiss me, but I turn my head at the last second, his lips grazing my cheek instead. He frowns. Everything okay? I nod, not trusting myself to speak. Jack's frown deepens, but he doesn't push it. Daddy, want to see my drawing? Anna tugs at his sleeve. Sure, princess, he says, following her to the fridge. I watch them, anger bubbling up inside me. How can he stand there, playing the doting father, when just yesterday he dismissed Anna as easily placated by toys? It's great, sweetie, Jack says, ruffling Anna's hair. Hey, why don't you go play in your room for a bit? I need to talk to Mommy. My pulse quickens as Anna leaves. Jack turns to me, concern etched on his face. Clara, what's going on? You've been acting strange all day. I meet his gaze, searching for any trace of the man I married. Have I? I hadn't noticed. I guess I've just been distracted. Jack sits across from me, reaching for my hand. I pull away. Talk to me, he pleads. Whatever it is, we can work it out. For a moment, I'm tempted to confront him right then and there. But no, I need more. I need irrefutable proof. It's nothing. I lie, standing up. I'm just tired. I think I'll lie down for a bit. As I leave the kitchen, I hear Jack sigh heavily.
Good.
Let him worry. In our bedroom, I close the door and lean against it, my resolve strengthening. I won't let him gaslight me. I won't let him make me doubt what I heard. I move to my closet, pushing aside hangers until I reach the back. There, hidden behind old shoeboxes, is a small safe. I bought it years ago to store important documents. Now it would serve a new purpose. I open it and place my phone inside, the recording of Jack's conversations safely stored on it. This is just the beginning, I think, as I close the safe. Jack may think he's clever, but he has no idea who he's dealing with. I'm not just a wife or a mother. I'm a woman scorned, and I will not rest until I've uncovered every last bit of his deception. As I hear Anna's laughter floating up from downstairs, my determination solidifies. I'll protect her, no matter what it takes. And in the process, I'll reclaim the life and dignity Jack thought he could steal from me. Let the hunt begin. The next morning, I wake before dawn, my mind already racing with plans. While Jack sleeps, oblivious, I slip out of bed and head to his office. I pause at Anna's room, peeking in to see her peaceful face. For her, I remind myself, this is all for her. In Jack's office, I boot up his computer. My hands shake as I type in his password, Anna's birthday. At least he remembered that. I start digging through his emails, looking for any correspondence with Lydia. Nothing obvious jumps out, but I notice a pattern of deleted messages. Clever, Jack. But not clever enough. I pull out a USB drive and start copying his entire email archive. As the files transfer, I rifle through his desk drawers. In the bottom one, I find a stack of credit card statements.
Bingo.
I scan through the charges, my stomach churning as I spot several expensive restaurant bills and hotel charges. All on days Jack claimed to be working late. The computer chimes, signaling the file transfer is complete. I quickly shut everything down, leaving no trace of my investigation. Back in our bedroom, Jack is still snoring softly. I slip the USB drive and credit card statements into my safe, then crawl back into bed, my skin crawling at his proximity. Hours later, I'm in the kitchen making pancakes when Anna bounces in. "Mommy, can we go to the park today?" she asks, her eyes bright with hope. I smile, grateful for the distraction. "Of course, sweetie. Let's have breakfast first." As we eat, Jack stumbles in, looking hungover. "Morning," he grunts, reaching for the coffee. "Daddy, we're going to the park," Anna exclaims. Jack winces at her volume. "That's nice, princess. I've got to head to the office, though. Big project due." Anna's face falls. "But it's Saturday." "I know, I'm sorry. Next time, okay?" He kisses the top of her head and heads for the door, not even glancing at me. As soon as he's gone, I turn to Anna. "Hey, how about we make it a special day? Park, ice cream, and maybe even a movie?" Her eyes light up. "Really? You're the best, Mommy." At the park, I watch Anna play, my heart swelling with love. How could Jack miss this? How could he choose anything over our daughter's laughter? "Clara? Is that you?" I turn to see Sarah, an old friend from college. We exchange hugs and catch up, her eyes widening as I mention Jack's frequent absences. "Clara," she says hesitantly, "I don't want to overstep, but I saw Jack last week at a restaurant downtown. He was with a woman and they looked close." My breath catches. "Blonde? Tall?" Sarah nods, looking worried. "Clara, is everything okay?" I force a smile. "Everything's fine. Thanks for telling me, Sarah." As she walks away, I clench my fists, anger boiling inside me. Another piece of evidence, another nail in Jack's coffin. That night, after tucking Anna in, I sit at the kitchen table, surrounded by printouts of emails and credit card statements. I've created a timeline of Jack's betrayal, each lie and secret rendezvous meticulously documented. My phone buzzes, a text from Jack. "Working late again. Don't wait up." I laugh bitterly. Of course he is. I pick up my phone, hesitating for a moment before dialing a number. "Hello," a gruff voice answers. "Mr. Daniels? This is Clara Thompson. I'd like to hire your services as a private investigator." There's a pause. "What exactly are you looking to investigate, Mrs. Thompson?" I take a deep breath. I need evidence of my husband's affair. As I hang up, I feel a strange mix of sadness and determination. This is it, the point of no return. But as I glance at Anna's latest drawing on the fridge, I know I'm doing the right thing. Jack thinks he's won, that he's outsmarted me. But he has no idea what's coming. I may be just a homemaker, but I'm about to become his worst nightmare. I've become a master of deception, living a double life that would make Jack proud if he knew. By day, I'm the perfect wife and mother. By night, I'm a relentless investigator, piecing together the shattered remains of my marriage. It's a Tuesday evening when fate hands me an unexpected gift. Jack's in his study, door ajar, engrossed in another important phone call. I'm walking past with a basket of laundry when I hear Lydia's name. My heart races as I set down the basket and pull out my phone, hitting record. I lean against the wall, straining to catch every word. "Lydia, baby, you know I can't tonight." Jack's voice oozes with false regret. "Clara's been suspicious lately. I need to play the dutiful husband for a while." I clench my fists, willing myself to stay silent. "Of course I miss you," he continues. "God, the things I want to do to you right now." I squeeze my eyes shut, fighting back nausea. "Clara? Please," Jack scoffs. She's clueless. Probably thinks I'm on a business call right now. Sometimes I wonder if she even has a brain in that pretty little head of hers. White-hot rage courses through me. I want to burst in, to confront him, to make him eat those words. But I hold back. This is too valuable. "Look, I promise I'll make it up to you this weekend," Jack says. "I'll tell Clara I have a conference. We'll have the whole weekend to ourselves. Just you and me, baby." I've heard enough. I stop the recording and retreat to our bedroom, my mind reeling. Once inside, I play back the conversation, each word a dagger to my heart. But beneath the pain, a cold determination takes root. This is it, the smoking gun I've been waiting for. I save the recording to my secret email account and delete it from my phone. Then I head downstairs, plastering on a smile, as I hear Jack emerge from his study. "Hey, honey," he says, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Sorry about that call. Work's been crazy lately." I turn in his embrace, meeting his eyes. "No problem. I understand." Jack smiles, relief evident on his face. "You're the best, you know that? I don't know what I'd do without you." I force a laugh. "Probably starve. Speaking of which, dinner's almost ready. Can you get Anna?" As Jack heads upstairs, I return to the stove, my mind racing. I now have irrefutable proof of his affair and his contempt for me. The question is, what do I do with it? Over dinner, I watch Jack interact with Anna, noting the genuine affection in his eyes. It's the one thing I can't reconcile. How can he love her so much and yet be willing to tear apart her family? "Daddy, can we go to the zoo this weekend?" Anna asks, her eyes shining with hope. Jack hesitates, glancing at me. "I'm sorry, princess. I have a conference this weekend. But maybe next week, okay?" Anna's face falls, and I feel a surge of protective anger. "Actually," I interject, "why don't Anna and I go to the zoo ourselves? We could make it a girls' day out." Anna's excitement is palpable, and even Jack looks relieved. "That's a great idea," he says. "You two have fun." Later that night, as Jack snores beside me, I lie awake, formulating my plan. I can't confront him yet, I need more. I need to know exactly where he'll be this weekend, who he'll be with, what he'll be doing. I reach for my phone, pulling up the contact for Mr. Daniels, the private investigator. "I have new information," I text. "I need surveillance this weekend. Every detail, every moment." The response comes quickly. "Understood. I'll take care of it." I set down the phone, a grim smile on my face. Jack thinks he's so clever, juggling his two lives. But his house of cards is about to come crashing down, and I'll be there to watch it burn. The weekend arrives, and with it, a storm of conflicting emotions. As I help Jack pack for his conference, my fingers tremble with barely contained rage. Every lie he tells, every casual kiss on my cheek, feels like a mockery of our vows. "I'll miss you both," Jack says, hugging Anna tightly. "Have fun at the zoo, princess." I watch them, my heart breaking for Anna. She doesn't deserve this deception. As Jack's car disappears down the driveway, I spring into action. "Ready for our adventure, sweetie?" I ask Anna, forcing cheer into my voice. At the zoo, I'm torn between genuine joy at Anna's excitement and the constant buzz of my phone. Mr. Daniels sends updates throughout the day, each one a dagger to my heart. Subject checked into Rosewood Hotel, room 412. Subject met blonde woman in hotel bar. Proceeding to room. I clench my jaw, focusing on Anna's delight at the elephants. She deserves this day of innocence before her world shatters. That evening, after tucking Anna in, I meet Mr. Daniels in a quiet cafe. He slides a manila envelope across the table. It's all there, Mrs. Thompson. Photos, video, audio recordings. Are you sure you want to see this? I nod, my throat tight. I need to know everything. At home, I spread the contents of the envelope across the kitchen table. Photos of Jack and Lydia entering the hotel, intimate moments captured through windows, transcripts of their conversations. It's all so clinical, yet each piece of evidence feels like a physical blow. One photo catches my eye: Jack and Lydia at dinner, his hand caressing hers. The look in his eyes.
It's how he used to look at me.
Tears blur my vision, but I blink them away. No more crying. No more weakness. I stay up all night, meticulously organizing the evidence. By dawn, I have a comprehensive timeline of Jack's betrayal, from the first suspicious late night to this damning weekend tryst. Sunday evening, Jack returns home, all smiles and false cheer. "How is the zoo?" he asks, kissing Anna's forehead. "It was awesome," Anna exclaims. "We saw lions and tigers and bears." "Oh my," Jack chuckles, and for a moment, I see a flicker of the man I married. "How was your conference, dear?" I ask, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Jack launches into a detailed account of fictional seminars and networking events. I listen, marveling at his ability to lie so effortlessly. That night, as Jack sleeps beside me, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break, I make my final decision. I can't let this continue. I can't let Anna grow up in a house built on lies. Monday morning, I wait until Jack leaves for work and Anna's at school. Then I call my lawyer. "Sandra, it's Clara Thompson. I need to file for divorce." There's a pause on the other end. "Clara, are you sure? This is a big step." "I'm sure," I reply, my voice stronger than I feel. "I have evidence of infidelity. Substantial evidence." We spend the next hour discussing logistics, custody arrangements, division of assets, the legal process ahead. By the time we hang up, I feel both drained and oddly empowered. I spend the rest of the day in a daze, going through the motions of my usual routine. As I fold laundry and prepare dinner, I'm acutely aware that these mundane tasks represent the last vestiges of my life as Jack's wife. When I pick up Anna from school, her innocent chatter about her day feels like a lifeline to normalcy. I hug her tightly, knowing that soon I'll have to shatter her world to save her from a greater hurt. As we pull into the driveway, I see Jack's car already there. Unusual for him to be home this early. My heart races as I realize this is it. The moment of truth has arrived sooner than I expected. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. It's time to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my future. For myself and for Anna. No more lies. No more deception. It ends today. As I pull into the driveway, my heart hammers against my ribs. Jack's car is there, hours earlier than usual. Anna chatters excitedly in the back seat, oblivious to the tension radiating from me. "Daddy's home early," she squeals, unbuckling her seatbelt before I can even park. I force a smile. "Honey, wait for me before you go inside, okay?" We enter the house, and Jack emerges from the kitchen, a strange expression on his face. "Hey, you too," he says, his voice oddly strained. "Anna, why don't you go play in your room for a bit? I need to talk to Mommy." Anna looks between us, sensing the tension. "But Daddy, you're never home this early. Can't we play together?" Jack's face softens.
"Soon, princess."
"I promise. Just give Mommy and me a few minutes, okay?" As Anna reluctantly heads upstairs, I steel myself. This is it. The moment I've been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Jack turns to me, his face a mask of guilt and fear. "Clara, We need to talk. I laugh bitterly. Oh, now you want to talk. After months of lies and deception. His eyes widen. What are you, Dash? Save it, Jack. I cut him off, my voice ice cold. I know everything. About Lydia, about your conferences, about how you really feel about me and our marriage. Jack pales, stumbling back as if I'd physically struck him. Clara, I can explain, Dash. Explain what? I spit, my carefully contained rage finally boiling over. Explain how you've been lying to my face for months? How you've been sneaking around with your assistant while I've been here, taking care of our daughter, believing in our marriage? It's not what you think, Jack pleads, reaching for me. I recoil from his touch. Don't you dare, I hiss. I heard you, Jack. I heard how you talk about me when you think I can't hear. Clueless, Clara, right? Well, guess what? I'm not as clueless as you thought. I pull out my phone, playing the recording of his conversation with Lydia. Jack's face crumples as he hears his own voice, dripping with contempt for me and lust for her. How could you? I whisper, tears finally breaking through my anger. How could you do this to us? To Anna? Jack sinks into a chair, head in his hands. I'm sorry, he mumbles. I never meant for this to happen. It just did. Things don't just happen, Jack, I say, my voice steadier now. You made choices. Choices that destroyed our family. A small voice from the stairs makes us both freeze. Mommy? Daddy? Why are you fighting? We turn to see Anna, tears streaming down her face. My heart shatters all over again. Oh, sweetie, I say, moving towards her. But she backs away. Is Daddy leaving? She asks, her lower lip trembling. Like Samantha's daddy did? Jack stands, reaching for her. No, Princess, I'm not Dash. Don't lie to her. I interrupt, my voice sharp. Not anymore. Anna looks between us, confusion and fear in her eyes. I want us to be together, she says, her voice small and broken. Can't we just be happy? In that moment, seeing the pain in my daughter's eyes, something inside me solidifies. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about Anna and the example I set for her. I kneel down, meeting Anna's gaze. Sweetie, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Big mistakes that hurt the people they love. And sometimes the best thing to do is to start over. But I don't want to start over, Anna sobs. I want things to stay the same. I pull her into a hug, feeling her small body shake with sobs. Over her head, I meet Jack's gaze. The guilt and regret in his eyes do nothing to soften my resolve. We can't stay the same, Anna, I say softly. But I promise you, no matter what happens, Mommy and Daddy both love you very much. That will never change. As I hold my crying daughter, with my soon-to-be ex-husband standing helplessly by, I know that the real battle is just beginning. But for Anna's sake, for my own sake, I'm ready to fight. No more lies. No more pretending. It's time for the truth, no matter how much it hurts. The next morning, I wake up on the couch, my eyes puffy from a night of intermittent tears and fitful sleep. Jack had retreated to the guest room, leaving me to comfort Anna until she finally drifted off. I make my way to the kitchen, where I find Jack nursing a cup of coffee. His eyes are bloodshot, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. For a moment, I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. We need to talk, I say, my voice hoarse but steady. Jack nods, unable to meet my gaze. Clara, I dash. I hold up a hand, silencing him. No, Jack. You've done enough talking. Now it's my turn. I pull out a thick folder from my bag, the evidence I've collected over the past weeks. Photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts, and transcripts of recorded conversations spread across the kitchen table. Jack's face pales as he takes it all in. You hired a private investigator, he whispers, disbelief etched on his face. I did what I had to do, I reply coldly, to protect myself and our daughter from your lies. I play the recordings, his disdainful comments about me, his passionate declarations to Lydia. With each revelation, Jack seems to shrink in his chair. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I continue, my voice gaining strength. I'm filing for divorce. Jack's head snaps up. Divorce? Clara, please, we can work this out. I'll end things with Lydia. I'll go to counseling, anything you want. I laugh, a harsh, bitter sound. Anything I want? I wanted a faithful husband. I wanted a father who put his family first. I wanted the man I married, not this stranger sitting in front of me. Think about Anna, Jack pleads. She needs both her parents. I am thinking about Anna, I snap. I'm thinking about the example I want to set for her. I want her to know that she should never settle for being someone's second choice, that she deserves respect and honesty in her relationships. Jack reaches across the table, trying to take my hand. I pull away. Clara, I love you. I love our family. This thing with Lydia, it was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. For a moment, I waver. Part of me wants to believe him, wants to cling to the remnants of our life together. But then I remember the contempt in his voice when he spoke about me to Lydia, the casual cruelty of his betrayal. No, Jack. I say, my voice firm. Love doesn't treat someone like this. Love doesn't lie and cheat and belittle. What you feel isn't love, it's ownership. You thought you could have it all. The devoted wife at home, the exciting mistress on the side. Well, not anymore. I stand up, gathering the evidence back into the folder. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. I think it's best if you move out today. Jack's face crumples. Where am I supposed to go? I'm sure Lydia would be happy to take you in. I reply, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. After all, you two have so much in common, like a complete lack of moral compass. As if on cue, Anna's voice calls from upstairs. Mommy? Daddy? Jack moves to stand, but I stop him with a look. I'll go. You start packing. I find Anna in her room, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. Is Daddy leaving? She asks, her lower lip trembling. I sit beside her on the bed, pulling her close. Yes, sweetie. Daddy's going to be living somewhere else for a while. Because of the fighting? I nod, struggling to find the right words. Sometimes, when grown-ups hurt each other very badly, they need to live apart to heal. Anna buries her face in my shoulder. Will Daddy still love me? My heart breaks all over again. Of course he will, baby. Daddy and I both love you very, very much. That will never change. As I hold my daughter, listening to the sounds of Jack packing downstairs, I feel a strange mix of grief and relief. The life I thought I had is over, shattered by betrayal and lies. But from the ashes of that life, I'm determined to build something new, something honest, something strong. For Anna, for myself, for the future we both deserve. 6 months have passed since Jack moved out, and the world hasn't ended. In fact, it's slowly but surely getting better. I stand in my kitchen, sipping coffee and watching Anna play in the backyard. She's laughing, chasing butterflies with a net I bought her last week. The sound of her joy is a balm to my soul. The divorce proceedings were messy, as expected. Jack fought tooth and nail to maintain his image, but in the end, the evidence was overwhelming. His company pushed him out to avoid scandal, and most of our friends sided with me once the truth came to light. I won primary custody of Anna, with Jack getting every other weekend. It's been an adjustment for all of us, but Anna's resilience never ceases to amaze me. The doorbell rings, pulling me from my thoughts. I open it to find Sarah, my college friend who first tipped me off about Jack's affair. Ready for our volunteer shift? She asks, smiling warmly. I nod, grabbing my purse. Anna, I call. Time to go, sweetie. The local women's shelter has become my sanctuary these past months. Helping other women rebuild their lives has been instrumental in rebuilding my own. Today, Anna's coming with us to help sort donations. As we drive, I catch Anna's eye in the rearview mirror. Excited to help out today? She nods enthusiastically. Yeah. Miss Judy said I could help organize the toy donations this time. My heart swells with pride. Despite everything, Anna's kindness and empathy have only grown stronger. At the shelter, we're greeted by familiar faces. Women I've come to know and respect, each with their own story of survival. As we sort through clothes and toiletries, I overhear Anna chatting with another little girl, sharing her own experience of divorce with gentle wisdom beyond her years. "It's okay to be sad," Anna says softly. "But remember, it's not your fault. And your mom loves you so much." Tears prick my eyes, and I have to turn away for a moment to compose myself. Later that evening, after tucking Anna into bed, I sit on the porch with a glass of wine. The night is peaceful, stars twinkling overhead. For the first time in a long time, I feel truly at peace. My phone buzzes, a text from Jack. "Anna left her favorite stuffed animal at my place. Can I drop it off tomorrow?" I type back a quick affirmative, no longer feeling the sting of anger or betrayal at his name. It's been replaced by a calm indifference, tinged with pity for the life he threw away. As I sit there, I reflect on the journey of the past year. The pain, the anger, the fear, it all seems so distant now. In its place is a strength I never knew I possessed, a resilience forged in the fires of adversity. I think about the women at the shelter, about Anna, about myself. We're all survivors, in our own ways. And while the road hasn't been easy, I wouldn't change a thing, because this journey has led me here, to a place of self-respect, of purpose, of genuine happiness. Tomorrow, I have a job interview at a local nonprofit. It's a far cry from my life as a homemaker, but I'm excited about the prospect of a new challenge. Anna's thriving in school, making new friends, and excelling in her studies. We're building a new life, brick by brick, day by day. As I finish my wine and head inside, I catch sight of my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me is stronger, wiser, and more alive than she's ever been. She's a survivor, a fighter, a mother. She's me, and for the first time in a long time, I'm proud of who I see. I close the door behind me, ready to face whatever tomorrow brings. Because I know now, without a doubt, that I can handle anything life throws my way. After all, I'm Clara Thompson, and I'm nobody's second choice.